Okay, good morning. If I can have everyone take their seat, please. This is a lively group this morning. We are going to go ahead and begin the meeting. So, good morning and welcome to the September 25th Oregon Tourism Commission meeting. To everyone that has joined us here today in Madras, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Today's meeting materials, including the agenda and supplemental material, can be found on the Travel Oregon industry website if you'd like to follow along. The Oregon Tourism strives to hold meetings in all regions of the state, including more rural areas. Sometimes this will include certain barriers to Wi-Fi signals that are strong enough to live stream our meetings. With that said, the recording of this meeting will be available on Travel Oregon's YouTube channel on Thursday, September 26th. Commissioners, I would like to acknowledge that in holding a meeting today, we met all public meeting notice requirements provided by state law. To begin, I would like each of the commissioners to introduce themselves, and I will begin with Commissioner Pendleton.
Okay. Good morning. My name is David Pendleton, owner of America's Hub World Tours, Oregon Tour Experts. First of all, I just want to say this. There's a program that's supported and led by Travel Oregon and Oregon Lodging an Association, and that's the Leadership Academy. And I just hope that each and every commissioner have an opportunity to learn more about that program. And I just want to say, Todd, thank you for your support of the program, and I hope we continue to invest in it because I think it's really made the difference for bringing and aligning all 7 regions as well. And the other thing I just want to comment on is I sent an email out to many of my associates and many of the all of the commissioners here. Tourism Cares is happening in Eugene coming this upcoming week, starting the 30th through the 2nd. So if there's an opportunity to just look and review what the summit is about, I truly believe it aligns with the vision of this, that we have laid out here. Do take a look at it. That's all I have. Other than that, I'm excited to be here, and of course, just being around all of you makes this a very special commission for me.
Commissioner Hill.
Good morning. My name is Travis Hill. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Umpqua Indian Development Corporation based in Roseburg, Oregon, which is kind of the corporate entity that holds Seven Feathers Casino Resort, Seven Feathers RV Resort, our Tacoma Roasting Company. So happy to be here today. We had a fantastic morning yesterday with a morning walk and had the opportunity to visit Canita Resort yesterday, which was fantastic. I love what they're doing there. The food was the salmon was amazing. I was kind of craving that later in the evening, even though it was stuffed. So, but yeah, it's exciting to see what they're doing out there and prospering in that location. It was always, a lot of memories made out in that region. I took my kids back there many times in the early 2000s, and then it's good to see it come back. So, thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Commissioner Grummels.
Good morning. My name is David Grimmels, founder of Rogue Creamery and proprietor of Churn. I just wanted to thank Madras for hosting us. I really enjoy this place. This is a place where I field test my German Shorthair pointers every autumn, so it really puts a smile on my face to be here and know that I'll be returning very soon. Wish you all a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Grummels. Commissioner Patel.
Good morning, Harish Patel. I own a couple of lodging facilities. I am so happy to be in Madras. Stunning high desert landscape, big sky, and above all for me, just perfect blend of sunshine and fresh air.
Thank you, Commissioner Rowe.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Rowe. I own Crater Lake Zipline and Rowe Outfitters. I've spent a bit of time in the Central Oregon area, usually chasing my kids when they were in sporting events. So I spent a lot of time in the gyms. So it was really fun to get out and do a little bit more hiking, and I think I'm going to have to be coming back multiple times.
Thank you. Commissioner Youngblood.
Good morning, everyone. Scott Youngblood with Solterra Development and Cascada Thermal Springs and Hotel, opening this year in Portland, and sometime there after that in Bend. I just want to reiterate what I've already heard other commissioners say. It's so magical to get to be here. Madras is personally very dear to me. This morning I found Central Oregon Cup and Cake. It is just on the south side of town. If anybody needs a cup of coffee, that lady is magnificent. You craved the salmon, apparently, last night, Travis. You're better than me. My pockets are still loaded with fry bread from last night, and so if anybody wants a snack later, just hit me up. And yeah, it's delightful to be in this community and to be welcomed the way that we have been and consistently are. Could not be more grateful for the local hospitality.
Thank you. Vice Chair Willits.
Thank you and good morning. Greg Willits, built and manage Five Pine Lodge in lovely Sisters, Oregon. Thankful to be here. Really thoughtful evening last night for me. I went there desiring the water, and I left with an appreciation for the people and culture. My wife reminded me we'll be back there within a month because it is now a priority. And my wife also did some reminding on another asset to this area. Thank you, Debbie, for managing a great region and a great town. She jumped out of her perfectly good airplane up on the plateau. And that's a reminder we have great weather here. You can jump out of a plane regularly without weather setting you back. Another reason to come back to Madras. And thank you.
And our CEO,
All right.
Todd.
Thank you, Lucinda. Good morning, everyone. I'm Todd Davidson. I'm the CEO at Travel Oregon. At the risk of being super redundant, I would be remiss in not thanking our hosts here in Madras and certainly in Central Oregon. The hospitality is just world class. Of course, we expected nothing less, but it was just so fun to be able to experience it firsthand. And last night, being able to be at Warm Springs and the welcome that we were afforded, especially when Starla acknowledged that we were being welcomed into that Kanita family, that is a gift that I certainly don't take lightly, and I know many of you as commissioners don't either, to literally be welcomed in that way. So a very, very special evening for sure. And as Mr. Salyers noted, over with the opening of that, reopening of Kanita, over 100 jobs created now, and over 80 of them have gone to tribal members. So the impact is obviously very significant. So it was an honor to be there.
Thank you, Todd. And my name is Lucinda DeNovo. I'm the Director of Sales at the Mill Casino Hotel and RV Park, owned by the Coquille Indian Tribe, and Chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission. I think everything's been said, and I think Todd actually referenced most of the things I wanted to say. It was truly, yeah, you're in trouble. It was truly a magical evening, and I wanted to thank Starla Green, who is also a member of the Tribal Tourism Group, for her hospitality and welcoming us into that community. I don't know if everyone knows, I was fortunate enough, Travis and I, to sit at the table with Jim Sowers, who is the CEO of the Economic Development Organization, and little known fact for some, that the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Spring has the largest land-based reservation in Oregon, over 6,000 tribal members, and Kanita means root digger, which I did not know, so I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was fascinating. Wonderful meal, the fry bread, wow. I was, Travis and I were talking about it, and the huckleberry butter and the salmon, and it was just a really amazing evening. And the work that Central Oregon has done with the teepees, giving them the money for the teepees and the art, kudos to you. How exciting to see that. And we just wish them all the success. Clearly, it's a special place, and I don't think I will soon forget it. So thank you. I do want to remind everyone that we do have an opportunity to hear comments from stakeholders and partners. So if you plan to make those remarks, we do have a sign-up sheet, I think, right outside in this door. And with that said, I will begin the meeting as reminding the commissioners that in June, we shared gratitude for the Welcome Center staff around the state. And today we have a specific reason to share our thanks again, because back in late July, the staff at the Ashland Welcome Center directly aided in identifying a missing person who had entered the Welcome Center following an emergency notice. Their quick thinking and teamwork resulted in the disoriented person being returned safely to their family. Great work, team, and thanks for continuing to serve visitors and residents alike. And with that said, we have a very full agenda, so let's get started. Commissioners, in holding this meeting throughout the state, one important opportunity is we get to hear from our local partners welcoming us into the community. It is my pleasure to introduce Scott Larson, President and CEO of Visit Central Oregon, and Debbie Taylor, Director at the Madras Jefferson County Chamber of Commerce, to join us today. Please.
Good morning. Welcome. I am Debbie Taylor, the Executive Director at the Madras Jefferson County Chamber, and I thank you for sharing your sentiments about the county that I'm so proud to be a part of for the last 19 years. A little bit about me, wife to one, mom to 3 high schoolers right now, freshman, junior, and senior. We are doing all things career-oriented, sports-oriented. My husband's even running for county commissioner, so when you ask what am I doing, I'm doing everything right now. So prior to moving to Jefferson County, I had been in the banking industry in the Canby, Newburgh, and Tualatin area. Once I stepped into this area with my husband for his job with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, went into the education field as a substitute teacher, working that for 13 years, coached soccer, high school level for that. And then the marked week that we all remember, March 9th, I was hired by EDCO, the Economic Development of Central Oregon, to be the Jefferson County Internship Coordinator, and continue to work through that, having the opportunity to work with high school and college age students to put them into careers and industries that they're interested in, working with businesses just to grow our emerging workforce. And then, of course, an RFP came out in 2023. I navigated the changes with that scope of work and the funding and waited on the Lord for the next right thing. And this, as your chamber director, is the next right thing. It is all things for me administratively, being the natural networking collaborator, sharing with you all of the things. Fry bread, I don't know about you, I had a conversation that continued last night with Delson once the bus left, and we took to-go boxes of the blackberry cobbler, which was a great breakfast. So thank you for being here to share in all of that. I stepped into this role on January 9th, so it's been about 9 months. Through the interview process, I was able to present to our interview committee a 30, 60, 90-day plan of action, whether they decided to take me on in that role or someone else, just taking at an overall perspective of what is the chamber doing well, what could we do better on, and being able to collaborate with those local leaders. So I looked at it as an opportunity to level up our community, take what we've already done and level us up. And for me, that included collaboration with those leaders already here. That was sitting down with our city and county officials to have a candid conversation about the transient lodging tax dollars. What could I do better? What hasn't been done? How can I make this an opportunity for our community to showcase, as you've all experienced, what we have here in the community? As it shows on our website, we are focused on enhancing the economic vitality and livability of this culturally diverse community, as you have experienced. I tag on a little bit more of that we're striving to be the hub of event information, local information, tourism, and economic development. So what does that look like? Well, Debbie's had the conversations with the city and county. We have a new Jefferson County Event Complex Director that started a week after I did, and I'll tell you there's a lot of enthusiasm between the two of us, so just wait, more to come. We had a new airport director who is a local pilot who is now our airport manager, and she started in February. Library director, we make a point of going to our community center, which is most of our community that has the hair color of wisdom and knowledge, and making sure that they're connected tech-wise, making sure they know information. Some of you took a hike out the Willow Canyon Trail area, and you might have seen the effects of our fire. It was being there for our community to make sure that they had the app notifications to know when they're evacuating. And so the partnership with that is every other week, maybe once a month, we're at the community center for lunch. And then I've also pulled in our library director is helping with our candidate forums. So we have 5 candidate forums that are taking place now. She's moderating 2 for county treasurer, 3 of them for our county commissioners, and then we're also doing city council. So we're doing all the things of working together for that. And then we're also partnered with Madras Downtown Association. I hope you do take the opportunity today to tour the spot, which is in downtown. We could say it's about 3 blocks of an area, but take a little walk. I know Matt and I had done that last week. Scott and I have done that as well, just to see what's available. It's about 3 blocks of retail, beverages, food, all of that. And we're partnering with them for the events that they do and the events that we do. And we also offer them the opportunity to be in our conference room, business after hours, so that they can take advantage of that meeting space for us. And then I'm also excited for a partnership that EDCO is getting an area director. We haven't had one since November of 2019, and that person will be starting on the 1st of October. So I'm very excited to get Brenna into all things Jefferson County. So what does that look like that Debbie has done? As you can see before you, I do have a new website. We did rebrand our logo. We did go take a look at the website and make sure it's user-friendly. As you scroll through the main page here, you can see some of our KPIs, our key points of interest. These links will actually take you to the website for all of those spots. Canita on there, Lake Semtestis, Plateau Travel Plaza, Erickson's Aircraft Museum, and Aquatic Center, all of those things. So those are accessible for people. Another aspect was taking a look at our events. I had the fortunate question of, why don't we have a community calendar? Why don't we have a spot for everyone to go to? And then have a conversation with the county saying, well, Debbie, we've wanted to have something like this for 12 years. And me saying, well, have you looked at the website? I already built it. So we have a community event calendar. And when you do go to that, you're going to see anything that's taking place in Jefferson County that we know about. Something that was affirmed for me at the Governor's Conference on Tourism was spending time online and social media. And so if we don't know about the information that's already taking place, we're mining that from what's out there. We're seeing the Facebook post. So if you're scrolling late at night and you're wondering, where's that post I saw? We've probably got it and listed it on here. So just know that those algorithms do and don't work in your favor, but hopefully we have all of that there for you. We also have an event sign-up page. The Chamber does a few events. As you can see, the top one that you could sign up for right now is our Chamber Global Golf Tournament happening on October 4. Yeah, I'm going to get a few miles out of that. So that's going to be our first fundraiser that we have. We typically do, as you can see here, a Halloween costume contest, parades. We also use this as a sign up for our community garage sales, so people can put information in there. And our last Jefferson County Madras-centric community-wide garage sale, people said it was the most successful and had the most vendors. And so that is something that we have leveraged there as well. So then I also have a membership directory. When we talk about new leadership comes fresh eyes. And I took us from 17 membership levels valued at $80 to $385 a year to 5 levels. We are at platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and individual, an evaluation of $100 to $2,500. So taking a look at that with the metrics, that went from $19,000. Now we are on track for $49,000 in revenue with the potential for more. I have a portfolio of about 300 businesses that I need to also get out and talk with about renewing their chamber membership. But that equates to 169 paying chamber members right now. 3 at platinum, 5 at gold, 7 at silver, and most of them at bronze or the individual level. You can also look at the flip book that is there, which is coming soon. We're going to get a new one refreshed. And you can also search by industry, but you will have correct information for all of our chamber members here on the website. There is refreshed pictures of our board of directors and a lot of helpful information that is there for you. I'm working through all things, especially the fact that we have capital improvements for a 1974 building that we're working on. So hopefully we can get all of that refreshed so that we can continue to encourage people to stop, stay, recreate, play, spend money here. We have a great partnership with Visit Central Oregon and have been involved with the Destination Management Studio Steering Committee, where we have planned some tours. We do have an upcoming tour that is going to be on October 10th. So if you'd like to come back and experience a little bit more of what you already had the opportunity to over the last couple of days, do come back for that, as well as a workshop that's taking place on January 14th. So we've had a great opportunity to collaborate with Scott. Him and I had, like I had mentioned, had sat down and have a conversation. He is also going to come back on Friday and meet with some of those key leaders that we have talked about, or that I've already mentioned today. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Scott.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Good morning, Commission. Good morning, Chair DeNovo. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to welcome you all to beautiful Central Oregon. Obviously, I think we're a little bit biased, but what an incredible place. What a beautiful morning. And it's just such an honor to host you all here. For those of you who I don't know or who I haven't had the chance to connect with yet, I'm the relatively new president and CEO for Visit Central Oregon. I started here in July, so still very much getting my feet underneath me. But super excited and feel super grateful to have landed here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, but before I do, I mentioned just how grateful I am to have landed here, and it's kind of amazing to me the way life brings things full circle, sometimes in unexpected ways. And as a kid, I was fortunate my grandparents had a retirement home in Sun River, and so we came here quite often to recreate, to enjoy beautiful Central Oregon. I learned how to ski at Mount Bachelor, so I'm very excited for the snow to fly here pretty soon. And I just feel really fortunate to have landed here, of all places. So for those who I haven't had the chance to connect with yet, I've been in the travel and tourism space for a little bit now. Prior to moving here from out of state, I was the executive director for Visit Laramie and the Albany County Tourism Board, and I served there for a little over 5 years. And we did a lot of great things for the communities there. We were responsible for travel and tourism promotion for the entire county. We worked collaboratively with the state, with other counties, with partners across the region, different vendors to promote everything from responsible recreation to increasing visitation. We won some marketing awards and really did a great job for the communities there. Prior to moving there and prior to meeting my wife, which was what brought me to Wyoming, I was in Steamboat Springs, Colorado for a number of years and worked for the resort there for a little bit, and then also worked for the DMO Chamber, CVB. That organization wears a lot of hats, as they tend to, in resort communities of that size. And I feel really fortunate to have been able to spend time there. I give a lot of credit to that organization for the way it shaped, the way it frames the lens that I look at travel and tourism through. Something you'll hear me say often is that travel and tourism is the front door to economic development. And if we're doing our job well, we're bringing folks to town, but it's not just about more bodies. It's not just about more visitor spending. It's about stewardship, something that I've heard a lot since arriving in Oregon. And what's the story that we're telling? What are we doing with those visitors? Why do those dollars matter? And so I'm really excited to be leading the next chapter at Visit Central Oregon as we think about that going forward. And we've also got a number of exciting things coming down the pipeline in Central Oregon, the first of which is the airport expansion that'll happen over the next few years at the Redmond Airport. That's a pretty vital lifeline for us when we think about air travel and visitation that comes in. And we're forecasted this year to have another record year for passengers through that airport. But if you fly in and out of there, you'll notice that it's definitely time for some change. It's time for some growth. And so we're working with the airport, the city of Redmond and others on expanding that airport over the next few years. We'll be adding food and beverage outlets. We'll be adding space. And you can see some mock-ups here of what that potentially will look like. But a much better visitor experience, user experience, flying in and out of that airport and how vital that is for travel and tourism throughout all of Central Oregon. And then also close to home, some things that I'm excited about as we look ahead throughout our fiscal year at Visit Central Oregon and beyond. Those first two bullets are very closely tied together, but leading us through a strategic planning process over the next few months. It's definitely something that's needed. It's something that I've done a handful of times prior. And we're fortunate to have a really great team, many of who are here today with us. We've got a solid board, and we've got some solid leadership. And so it's time to start to think about what do we want tourism to look like in the coming years, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years out. And I think that's really closely tied to the destination management studio work that Christine and others on our team are working on in partnership with Travel Oregon. You guys will hear about that here in a little bit. But I think there's a lot of cross-sharing when we think about those processes and the listening sessions that you might otherwise do in a strategic plan, but how do we bring those voices to the table? How do we have those conversations? How do we educate those locals and make sure that we're creating the best strategic plan going forward that we can? And then lastly, new leadership in Central Oregon at the DMO level. I think anytime you have turnover at that level at organizations that often work closely together, I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to sit down and re-envision what we want that partnership to look like. I know many of you know Jeff with Visit Bend, now formerly Visit McMinnville, and he started a couple months prior to when I got here. And so I think it's an amazing opportunity for us to look at collaboratively what are the shared goals across the organizations? How are we sharing resources, sharing data, speaking from the same sheet of music so that when we're working with electeds, we're speaking the same language? And I think if we work collaboratively, we can really move mountains for the tourism economy across Central Oregon, being the two largest travel entities in the region. So there's a lot of really exciting things coming down the pipeline, but thank you all again for your time this morning. It's an honor to have you all here, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments or questions? David.
Hi. First of all, Scott, welcome.
Thank you.
I know you have an incredible team, and Christine has done so much to help me learn more about what Central Oregon has to offer, as well as many others. So welcome. And Debbie, what an experience last night at the resort. And of course, I almost stepped in the water, something we don't talk about, right? But you got a lot on your plate, and I will say you are truly blessed in so many ways. Family, and then the work that you're doing to help build this community. Yesterday in our briefing, I commented on Marco Mack, the person who works for the enforcement, who we saw on the trails yesterday. Early this morning, I ran into him again. He was out actually picking up garbage and what have you. But he says, there's so much that's going on here in Madras, and this community is truly engaged, and that's, it's very refreshing in many ways. And with the information that you shared, it truly aligns with what he had shared with me. And so thank you, and the future for Madras looks very bright. Thanks.
Any other comments, commissioners? I just wanted to reiterate, wow, you've only been with the chamber since January, and you've accomplished so much. So congratulations to you and all that work. And Scott, like David had said, welcome. You've got a great team, as I'm sure you already know. So, and Jeff, your neighbor, is close by. So I think great things will happen under your leadership. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioners, any other comments? Okay. The next item on the agenda is public statements. On Monday, September 9th, the commission meeting notice was posted to the commission meeting website, and notice was sent through our industry communications, and a link to the meeting agendas were posted. Today's opportunity to hear from our stakeholders and partners is really an invitation to our partners to provide us with information, updates, and constructive thoughts regarding Oregon's travel and tourism industry. I'd also like to remind everyone that a comment form lives continuously on our industry meeting page, should you like the opportunity to provide us with your thoughts and insights. I don't think there were any comments received before the meeting, and do we have any comments today? Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're just going to zip through that. So since there are no comments, we will move to commission business. Commissioners, I would like to confirm that everyone received and had a chance to review their commissioner packet, including the financials, which were posted to the meeting page.
Yes.
Okay, great. With that said, I'd like to thank Vice Chair Willits for reviewing the financials with Commissioners Stevenson and Pendleton, Todd and Kathleen prior to this meeting. I understand there was a healthy conversation regarding the state of the industry and how Travel Oregon is responding to that. So Greg, if you would like to give us a summary of the financials, please.
Thank you, Chair DeNovo. And please stick with me through these numbers. There's great news at the end, good news throughout. The financial committee meets regularly, at least once a month, to review these financials, and they have been included in our packets. The final fiscal year 24 financials came in, the transient lodging tax, inclusive of accruals from the Oregon Department of Revenue, totaled $41.4 million for fiscal year 24. Up 1.4% over fiscal year 23 and 102.4% of the amended budget of $40.4 million. The excess or unanticipated revenue totals of $960,954 is allocated according to statute. Fortunately, 20% or $192,000 of that overage goes to the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program, 10% or $96,000 to competitive grants, and 70% for agency programs. A plan for the use of the remaining $672,000 will be brought forward later this fiscal year for commission review and approval. And fresh off the presses, I wasn't privy to it before this moment. Fiscal year 25, our fiscal year to date TLT revenue for quarter one is $9.7 million, which is up 5.3% over the same time period last year. And that is some good news as we look at this year's budget. Do commissioners have any questions or comments related to the financials or the numbers that I spit out? Chair Youngblood.
Young
Chair.
blood in a chair. It's a,
Oh, sorry.
it's a,
Vice, past chair.
it's a subtle difference.
Sorry.
That's right. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I'm glad.
I really am. The budget performance, it never ceases to impress me. Admittedly, this was a recent budget revision, but to still be within, you really did fluster me, to be within a point, a little over a point of that budgeted number. And this is not an anomaly. This is just consistently excellent forecasting and financial performance. So I always have to take note and comment on that. And it was always a joy of mine to be on the financial committee when I had that luxury to be able to have these conversations, especially with Kathleen, because she's remarkable. And the 5.3% variance fiscal year to date actually comes as quite a surprise, because especially in an election year, we hear all of this noise and there's all of this dissonance over Are things better? Are things worse? Is your life better? Is your life worse? And so sometimes it's fun just to cling on to facts, those fact things. And so to see the statewide transient revenue up over 5% in a really important time of year to us when we should be making a lot of the revenue that gets us through the slow months is very encouraging. So I just thank you for the surprising update, and thank you to the members of the Financial Committee for the work that you all do.
Thank you, and you bring up a great point. It's the 6th straight year meeting or exceeding budget expectations. So, and that's a lot of work, and a lot of work on the communities that collect those funds and send them our way. So thank you for bringing a little more attention to my numbers. I appreciate it.
Past Chair Youngblood, we
Past Chair.
appreciate your comments. Okay,
I
with
have a
that
lot of
said,
respect for you.
the next item is approval of the minutes. So commissioners were sent a draft of the June 2024 commission meeting minutes via email on September 9th. Are there any questions or comments regarding these documents?
Chair DeNovo, I'd like to further Scott Youngblood's comments regarding the budget and the transparent and eloquent presentation that Todd gave us on the 4th of June. My comment, I just want to show that and prove I do read these minutes. I said conscientious and conservative approach to the budget revisions, and so appreciated the work of Travel Oregon, and somehow conservative got in there instead of conscientious and conservative. So I'm just creating 3 words out of 1 in the minutes.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Noted, Commissioner Gremmel. So with that said, I will take a motion for approval of the amended minutes.
Chair,
Oh.
one quick question.
Sure.
I know, well, Chair, Commissioner Patel and Commissioner Hill had a couple questions from our last meeting in June. Did either one of you get a response back, or it's something we can look at later if we need to? But
Are you talking in reference to the minutes? So in the
The minutes,
minutes, there
the
were
minutes.
several questions asked, and I
Right.
think David is asking, did you get those questions answered?
Quite honestly, I don't remember the question, so, but I have no concerns at this time.
Okay, Travis, you're good? Okay.
okay, great.
Okay, so with that said, if there are no further questions, I'll take a motion for the amended minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The June 2024 commission meeting minutes are approved and will be posted on the commission section of the Travel Oregon Industry website. I am going to remind everyone that back in June, I asked Commissioner Pendleton and Commissioner Grummels to lead the nominating committee to select the chair and vice chair of the commission for July 2024 to June 2025. I would like to invite Commissioner Grummels and Commissioner Pendleton to provide an update.
Commissioner Pendleton, if I may start.
Please.
Chair and DeNovo, both Commissioner Pendleton and I would like to thank you for the appointment to the committee. It's a great honor. It was truly an honor for Commissioner Pendleton and I to have the opportunity to speak to each of the commissioners. And we want to both thank you all for the time and commitment and the transparency, and totally respect your contribution to our conversations regarding the nominations for our future chair and vice chair. And with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Pendleton. But first, I want to say how much I really enjoyed working on this committee with you, Commissioner Pendleton and getting to know you through this process.
Well, thank you. And I would agree 100%. It's been a pleasure working with you as well. And I will say this, as far as the rest of the commission is concerned, thank you so much for your willingness in a timely manner to help us navigate the waters through this process. And it couldn't have been done without you. Each and every one of you were so engaged as we took a look at where we've been and the work that we've done as a commission. And then when we look at the future in terms of what this commission, the feeling that there's so much excitement there and willingness to be a part of the work that we do. And I think that excited me more so than anything. And I will say this, that we took a long look at not just the chair and vice chair coming up, but we also had a in-depth conversation with each and every one in terms of the readiness and willingness to support this commission, and at some point in the future can be considered for a VP or chair position. And so that was important information, and just it helped me tremendously. But unanimously, the commission 100% agreed that Chair Willis would remain as the vice chair. And, so thank you for the work that you've done. And to my friend, I'm just going to say this, Lucinda. I have been so proud of the work that you've done as a chair, and I know the commission has as well, and I'm so pleased to say that we unanimously select you as the incoming chair once again. So thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you. I want to thank the commission for your confidence in both Greg and my leadership. I've said it many times, it is a tremendous honor to serve on this commission and to represent the state in the work that we do, and even a bigger honor to serve in a role of leadership. So thank you for your confidence in us. And Greg, do you have any further comments?
Yeah, and David, one of my favorite things to say. David and David, thank you so much for a professional first time run at this process. I appreciated my interview with you and frank conversations, and you are quite a team to conduct it. I think it's a comforting space to share all sorts of information, and I think hopefully everybody felt that way, and we've solidified a new process that is efficient and clear and wonderful. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. I will say this, Chair Youngblood, thank you, because to really start the process, some of the work that you and others have done when we're looking at the nominating committee and what the role and requirements are, as well as the vice chair and chair position, a lot of that you really helped to pave the way and make this an easy process for us as well. With that said, do we need to?
Yes, we will need to take a motion. I just wanted to acknowledge, I think you've given Greg and I a lot of credit, but this work really is the commission's work. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you. You have been available for phone calls. You have been really engaged in this work. And so I think Greg and I are so grateful to have a commission that is so vested in the work that we do for Oregon, and invested in making sure that we have processes in place to make us a very high-performing commission. So thanks to all of you. With that said, if there are no further comments, I will take a motion for approval of chair and vice chair for the 2025 fiscal year.
So I make the motion to accept the nomination process of the candidates.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Greg and I will recuse ourselves from this vote, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. You're stuck with us for another year. Congratulations.
And I think I've started something here with Commissioner Youngblood. We're going to solve this right now. He is Commissioner Youngblood because we're all saying Chair Youngblood now. We're repeating my foul up. So sorry for that. I'm sorry, David. I messed you up on that.
Okay, with that said, past Chair Youngblood, the next item on the agenda is the CEO evaluation. So I want to remind everyone that we did have a closed executive session pursuant to ORS 1926602D to evaluate our CEO. I'm happy to report that we began that process, and we will finalize those details at a future meeting. So the next item also to discuss is the RFP decision on the RCTP and OWCLPTPP. There we go. Yep. Thank you, Harry. So commissioners, yesterday we did have the opportunity to hear about the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program and the Oregon Wine Country License Plate Tourism Promotion Program RFP process for the Mount Hood and Columbia River Gorge region. We walked through the entire process and the ultimate recommendation. And I would like to share my heartfelt appreciation to the entire review committee for their time, energy, and thoughtful consideration they provided. I'd now like to ask Harry and Kevney to provide us with a high-level overview of those recommendations ahead of us taking action here this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. And Scott, I do believe we have a few slides. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Just a moment. Awesome. So thank you very much for your time this morning and your time yesterday in terms of discussing our RFP approach for the Mount Hood Gorge region. And to recap yesterday's recommendation that the RFP Review Committee provided to you, we are recommending that Clackamas County Tourism, doing business as Experience Mount Hood in the Gorge, be designated for both the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program and the Oregon Wine Country License Plate Tourism Promotion Program for an 8-year designation comprised of 4 2-year contracts, and that is conditional on a midpoint review by the OTC. And just to recap yesterday as well, that is the same designation that was made for everyone that received the full designation term at the June Commission meeting as well. So it mirrors the recommendation from that process. But yeah, outside of that, I will leave this recommendation for you and your consideration.
Great. Any other questions or comments, Commissioners? Okay. With that said, if there are no questions, I will take a motion for approval of the outlined recommendation.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. As outlined, the RCTP Regional Oregon Wine Country License Plate Tourism Promotion Program designated is approved.
Thank you.
And now I will turn the program over to Todd.
All right. Thank you, Chair DeNovo. Since we're running just a couple of minutes ahead, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege, if I may. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge the work of this commission also. Many of you have commented on that, but the rigor and the intentionality that you've brought to the work of this commission is certainly appreciated by us. I will acknowledge a little bit of uncertainty in terms of who the chair is at this meeting, but we'll be all right. No, in all seriousness, the work that you've done together, and I especially want to thank the Davids, if I may, but Commissioner Gremmels and Commissioner Pendleton for your work on the nominating committee, not only in the thoughtful approach you made to having both Lucinda and Greg continue in their roles, but recognizing that this is, and many of you in the audience may not know this is actually a fairly, what I will refer to as young commission. Many of the members of this commission are in their very first term. Some are in their first year on the commission. So starting now, laying that groundwork, having those conversations about their aspirations for future leadership, where they may have interest in future leadership, so that we can begin and continue building that bench and that strength and the work of this commission is greatly appreciated by me and all the members of the staff team. So thank you for the work that you did specifically in that space. If I'm talking about the legacy of this commission, though, I'm also remiss if I don't acknowledge that someone who has been near and dear to me personally, but also very professionally for a number of years, and we just can't shake her, and that's okay because I adore her, and that's having Alana Houston in the room with us today. Alana, you know, your leadership in this industry, you've been a member of the Oregon Tourism Commission, you've served as chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission, you were there during very pivotal moments of this agency's history, and the fact that you are still here when in essence you don't need to be, but you're here because you care, just speaks volumes to me and I'm sure to other members of the industry as well. So I just want to thank you for your continued engagement and your continued leadership in the industry. Thank you, Alana. With that, commissioners, you know, we've talked a lot about the recovery of the travel and tourism industry in Oregon, and one of the places, both nationally but also felt here in Oregon, where the recovery has lagged somewhat is in the area of international. We saw it in our 2023 Economic Impact Report, where Dean Runyon Associates estimated that roughly 4% of all visitor spending in Oregon in 2023 came from international visitation. That is down, I would say, somewhat significantly from what had been 10% roughly year over year in the past, when we looked at how much of all visitor spending in Oregon was attributed to international visitation. So to go from 10 to 4% obviously shows that there's still opportunity for growth. We know much of that is still due to the pandemic, due to changing consumer behaviors. The fact that Asia has recovered more slowly, they opened later. The international air service into PDX from Asia has not been either restored yet, for example, the nonstop from Japan, or the additional flight that was discussed from Incheon into Portland has not launched yet. So there's still room for growth, and there's still opportunities for growth there, but that does not mean that the team at Travel Oregon is not continuing to look at ways to inspire and incent travel from our international markets, because we know our international visitors are really very much in service to our overarching vision. They're traveling here year round. They are higher spending visitors when they are here. This is a vacation that they are saving for, and so that higher average trip spend is significant. And like I said, their willingness to travel, you know, throughout the year, multiple days of the week, obviously takes some of the burden off some of those high use areas while we're looking to be able to continue to grow the industry in Oregon as well. So it is my pleasure at this time to ask Greg Eckhart, who's our Director of Global Sales, and Lorna Davis as our Global Sales Manager, to join us and talk to us about some of those specific initiatives that are underway to continue to inspire travel to Oregon from our key international markets. So Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Todd. Good morning, commissioners. It's great to see everybody. I've heard a lot of great comments about Canada and echoed Travis's comments. I took my kids to Canada many times in the early 2000s, and it brought back a lot of feels last night, and I heard that over and over from others. So very happy to be here in Central Oregon. Happy to see all of y'all this morning. Thanks again for your time. We're not up on the screen, though, yet. There it is. For those of you that are not facing the screen, I guess you have screens here, my apologies. Before I really start to dive in, you might be asking yourself where this gorgeous garden is. Hold that thought just a sec. I'm gonna give you a quick preamble on some of our activities, and then also a quick intro to our new-ish sales team at Travel Oregon. So new that we're still working on headshots, so thanks for bearing with me there. This is a dedicated group of sales professionals and international business development pros. They're committed to supporting Oregon's tourism economy, and while we're not all represented here today, I just want to acknowledge those teammates that are not here and this amazing team and the work that we all do with the Brand Stewardship Department. Rose is our coordinator. She keeps the global sales team firmly grounded and sets a solid foundation for all of us to stand on when we're out and about, whether that's in Oregon or around the globe. Lorna looks after our markets in Europe, which includes vital relationships and business development opportunities with international tour operator buyers, travel industry professionals, and through real crucial relationships with the airlines. You heard Todd mention airlines, and we'll dive into that a little more too. Thomas is the newest addition to our team. He looks after the Americas, particularly Canada, but also US-based travel trade and receptive tour operators. Those receptive tour operators are a vital linkage to hotel and other distribution globally. So our tour operators that internationally rely on those global travel trade networks with the receptive tour operators really to access the Oregon experience, for lack of a better term. He also works closely with Canadian airline partners. I'm, again, Greg Eckhart, lucky enough to lead this team of folks. I also have the privilege of representing Oregon in the Oceania and Asia markets still. So still doing some of that work and really enjoying it. So Todd talked about kind of, the lag that we're seeing internationally and what that says to us in sales and business development is we need to get out there and hit the road, talk to our customers where they're at, show them unique ways to experience Oregon in a different light. I think that what we'll talk a bit about today is business-to-business sales development opportunities, but also consumer opportunities that empower our partners. They also create opportunities to diversify Oregon's tourism economy in a variety of ways. And they also provide a really good stage, if you will, to share authentic stories about Oregon in a place where those buyers or those travelers are motivated to think about their planning. And we're doing that in every corner of the globe, really. Our work during the remainder of the year will include several in-person engagements, and I'll come back to that. But right now, I'd like to actually toss it to my colleague, Lorna Davis. Lorna's going to share an update about a very recent and unique, and we'll get back to that garden photo, industry engagement and activation that Travel Oregon produced in July of this year, so kicking off our fiscal year.
Thank you, commissioners, for peeking into a world of global sales with us this morning. This summer, Travel Oregon participated in the world's largest horticultural show at Hampton Court Palace in London, England. The annual show is attended by an affluent audience. Nearly 130,000 visitors every year visit, and mostly in the age range of 35 to 65. The Royal Horticultural Society has a large following. There's over 600,000 members, and there's also a strong media and travel trade following on their website, Facebook, and through other social media channels, including Instagram. Okay, which one? Their website generates a huge amount of traffic every year, and it sparks interest with UK media. The Oregon Garden was shared through the RHS website, which included a link to traveloregon.com. What did we do in partnership with Brand USA? We worked with a British landscape designer, Sadie Mae Stahl, to create an Oregon-themed garden complete with plants, trees, and a water feature, and a VW camper van. That was kind of fun. Throughout the course of the 7-day show, visitors were able to see and capture the essence of Oregon through a carefully curated, colorful garden, say that fast 3 times, that provided inspiration through highlighting regenerative travel and environmental sustainability. We created a space which was relaxed, natural, and welcoming, where we were able to engage with members of the media, travel trade, and airline industry partners, RHS members, and the public from all over the UK. The VW Vintage Camper van was it was really well received. People were just jazzed about that. The young and old alike enjoyed it, and as you can imagine, it stirred many, many memories.
And photos were taken with the camper. Her name was Belinda, which also provided some very much needed shelter because we encountered showers throughout the week. And they were sudden and challenging, but they also provided some welcome irrigation to the garden, which actually grew before our eyes. As you can see here, our team designed some awesome vinyl decals with Oregon images that we were able to groove up the van with. So it's fun. We were featured in the RHS Hampton Court Palace Garden Festival show guide. There's 60,000 copies of that distributed, and it's a well-treasured takeaway that they keep for reference for future garden inspiration, rather a coffee table book. The plants, oops, went a little too fast here. The plants that were featured in the garden are found in Oregon, and we know that we fielded a lot of questions about those plants and about horticulture and what things are like in Oregon, and I think that that piqued the interest of future travelers to our beautiful state. The show's official broadcast partner is BBC, and on BBC Two there was a program called Gardener's World where the Oregon Garden was featured, appearing twice during the broadcast. The press day had over 400 journalists in attendance, and we were able to host nearly 24 journalists in partnership with the Charleston, South Carolina, who are our neighbors at the show. Oregon wine was served at the intimate event, and here are a few of the posts from the many guests that attended that media event. You can see that they posted a lot on Instagram and on Facebook, and it was a very popular event. But wait, there's more. While America was celebrating the 4th of July with barbecues and fireworks, we were celebrating Oregon in the UK with over a dozen of our trade and airline industry partners. We served pizza, cupcakes, and of course, Oregon wine. Those in attendance are some of the many partners that we work with in the UK and globally promoting Oregon through the various programs and activations with tour operators, travel agencies, and airline partners. At the show, America As You Like It, which is a large UK tour operator that we've had a long-standing relationship with and partnership, provided brochures featuring a new Oregon-only itinerary that they are promoting. We've fostered relationships with many trade industry partners and with the guidance and work of our international contractors. In this instance, Lisa Chamberlain in the UK, we're able to have year-round representation, which is supporting Oregon's tourism economy, working to increase demand by engaging diverse audiences, and creating targeted promotions focused on visitor passions and trends. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much.
Nice job, Lorna. And I think Lorna's underselling it. On the trade side, I'm going to say that, I'm sorry. The relationships that Lorna has with the tour operators that attended this event on the 4th of July is second to none. I know our friends at Charleston, they had a beautiful garden, yes, of course, but they didn't have these clients from the trade side. And the truth is, you know, the Hampton Court is I think it was the summer palace for Henry VIII, and it's far out of the city. These clients came out at the end of their workday, around 4 or 5 o'clock, to come and see us kind of in the burbs, if you will, and spend several hours with us. In fact, I think they missed another trade event they were supposed to attend that evening. We were like, oh, I'm sorry. I think they were going to something at Wimbledon. And so to me, that really kind of held that up to me. I was like, these relationships are strong. They're all people that we've known forever. But Lorna and Lisa Chamberlain, our rep there, really own those relationships. It's a privilege to see that in action. So thank you.
Thanks.
How many attendees were there?
Well said, Greg.
Over 130,000. Yeah. It was a constant parade of wonderful people that had so much curiosity. And the scores of pictures of people in front of the Oregon Garden, they swarmed it like bees. It was fantastic.
Yeah. The van, in case anybody was wondering, the van is I think we figured out is a 72.
72,
Somebody came up and they had owned one at some point. And we're like, oh, that's a 72. I know.
Yeah.
So that it was just such a great activation. We're looking at doing these more. And what you saw really was a kickoff, albeit it was a very big kickoff to what we're doing. It's just really the tip of the iceberg. And this is for the current fiscal year. The sales team will host 35 live I'll call them live engagements and business development and sales opportunities globally during domestic and international trade shows, activations, one-on-one sales meetings, and unique, again, relationship-based interactions. That's really something that we rely on closely as we compete with destinations around the world. You may be looking at this map thinking, oh, you're talking about global, but I see Huntsville, Alabama there, and Palm Springs. And Huntsville, Alabama actually is the National Tour Association annual travel exchange. Thomas will attend that, meeting with motor coach tour operators, et cetera. We do have several members of that association in Oregon, so that's a great show. Palm Springs is actually all receptive and international. They just happen to be coming to us. But Lorna will get involved in several activations with consumers and trade in London, Manchester, with the Visit USA committees in Germany and Switzerland. So we have a lot of activity going on. Of course, that all really culminates with IPW in Chicago, inviting those several thousand international buyers to the United States to learn all about what the U.S. has to offer. So very, very excited about that. Didn't want to name every one of those 35. I can provide that list, or I think maybe we are going to provide that list if you would like that. We'll do that. I also have some other interesting news. Todd talked about the recovery and some of the lag that we've had, and you heard at the governor's conference on tourism from Tourism Economics. So during that commission meeting back in the spring of '24, you heard from Aaron Ryan at Tourism Economics, him saying that the visitor arrivals recovery from '23 versus 2019 was significantly lower. At that meeting, you were hearing it was reported at about 44% down. Or about 500,000 visitors. In that meeting, though, Aaron did indicate, hey, we have some other data. This isn't the final data that we have. I do have some good news, and I have an update to share on that. It's not as great a news as we would like, but we're working to correct that. Tourism Economics did provide us adjusted data in late August. I want to take a second to give a big shout out to Javier, Hannah, and Michael for really helping us work closely with Tourism Economics and get exactly what we needed from that data. It was really wonderful to work with the strategist and that research team. They just rocked it. So what we have found is that 2023 was actually only down by 18%. As opposed to 44. And the reason for this discrepancy is that Tourism Economics recorded or added new SIOT data. So SIOT is another wonderful acronym that is the Survey of International Air Travelers. So they've incorporated that SIOT data into their 22 and 23 estimates, which you can see here, and also within the forecast up to 28. So they've incorporated that data, which is wonderful. However, they didn't incorporate that prior to 21, I believe. That's how that was worked. Canada alone made up 54% of that adjustment. Canada is a massive market for us. We know that. Tourism Economics also included that newly released SIOT data on land travel, which gave us a really kind of more accurate understanding of the Canadian market and visitation to Oregon from that market through the drive trips. The rest of that change is made up of adjustments to the overseas market estimates, primarily China, Japan, and Australia. So now we're looking kind of more and more at an apples to apples comparison. The resulting data makes a lot more sense. We're only down 18%. And that's wonderful news, obviously, compared to what it was. So I'm happy to see they've incorporated SIOT. I think that will probably next year help them manage that data and maybe give us more accurate reporting at an earlier date. Stay tuned for that, though. Second to this, with this adjustment, this also shows us tracking more favorably against our comp set. I know we've recently, in the last year or so, really been focused on talking about our comp set. And again, Oregon's newly adjusted change is there overall, but we're also indexing better against the comp set. Previously, with the old data, there was an 11-point spread when compared against our total competitive set. It's now down to about 5 points. And then the gap between Oregon and the total United States has also nearly been closed. It's really close. So again, those adjustments also mimic spending. So these are visitor numbers we're talking about, but the spending numbers mimic that as well. so overall spend. And we're quite happy to see this. I'm looking forward to looking at 24. We've seen, yes, we are lagging a little bit with air service coming from Asia to PDX. That said, it was heartening to hear of the expansion in Redmond. You know, it's just as easy to fly from Sydney to Los Angeles to Redmond as it is to fly from, you know, to Portland or nonstop even from Asia. So there's air service around the state that provides good access to. Seattle has also increased a lot of frequency, adding frequencies, I think 2 this month from Taiwan. So I think that'll bring them to 3. They have 4 flights from Korea. There's also some changes occurring in Korea with air acquisition. Korean Air and Asiana are actually looking at a merger. So there's a lot of great motion in the market, and we do have great relationships with those airlines and can kind of dive into those conversations when we need to. So happy to take any questions. Again, appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Lorna. Questions from the commission or comments?
Hey, thank you. Thank you both. Sorry, I'm excited. On this slide specifically, this shows the index improvement. This shows that we're growing market share. And I assume, but I don't want to assume, that we are increasing market share of an incrementally smaller pie in present versus 2019. I assume that, and let me rephrase that, nationally, I assume that international inbound travel spend is incrementally less now than it was in 2019, and I don't want to make that assumption without validating it.
Yeah, that's a fair assumption to make. Nationally, it's lagging a bit.
Okay. So,
and I think, again, some of that has to do with air service, and probably the major contributor is the recovery of Asia, particularly China.
Of course, of course. So, and this is as much, I guess, dialogue for my colleagues, the members of the commission, as it is for us. But it's this idea of both long lens and short lens strategies. We're doing so much in terms of near focus, seasonal needs, kind of the urgent infusion, and that obviously we manage different market segments, we manage different client constituencies. In a world where the, sorry.
Movie trailer.
That's right. Where in a country where international inbound travel is shrinking, to have the foresight, the long lens foresight in a relationship game, for lack of a better word, where relationships, to your point relating to Lorna's relationships with the European market, where the relationships are so important and where business cannot happen overnight, the way I perceive everything in your presentation, we are playing the long game because we know it to be effective. And what you are doing now is it's contrarian in that conventional, I'll say logic, if not wisdom, is international is down, let's invest our money and our resource and our energy somewhere else that's up. But I would argue, and I believe that your efforts demonstrate, that we are investing at exactly the right time in reinforced focus on international travel and talking to these, the receptive tour operators, working with our international partners at a time when they're being neglected by other significant competitive markets in the United States. And this is a magnificent opportunity for us, not just, I hate the term steal market share, because what you're doing right now is earning market share. And so I can't applaud you enough for your efforts for this presentation and for the long game, as you, our international travel team at Travel Oregon, have always played. So that was just kind of a long, wordy, protracted way of saying wow and thank you. So next time I'll just say wow and thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, thanks to the leadership too for having that vision to invest in that long game.
Well, I'm sorry. I would say, I mean, you started out saying such a new team or whatever. I'm thinking to myself, my God, you got Lawrence in there who is probably more experienced than yourself, and Thomas who is, he's like a sponge.
Yeah.
But it's not just your team, the rest of the organization. When I think of others like Petra and so forth, I mean, you have such a resource there to really do some deep dive and strategically plan how you want to handle each and every targeted market out there. And you guys do a great job. My only question is, as far as Portland is concerned, has anything shifted or changed with KLM? And then the other piece is, as it relates to Brand USA, is there any, I don't want to take a lot of time, but is there any update or anything? Because I know, the China market, which you touched on earlier, and, I have such a passionate about the India market and what the future of that might look like. But that's something right now that I'm more concerned in terms of just keeping abreast where Brand USA is. That might be something for Todd, but any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, but the garden was done with Brand USA as a partner. We work incredibly close with Brand USA. We'll be doing an activation with them in Australia in a month. Well, not even a month. I think we're like 2 weeks out now, right? Thank you. Yeah. We work very closely with them. Sales missions. Lorna will be attending Brand USA Travel Week. I neglected to mention that when I was talking about shows. That's a huge show for us in Europe because that's where all of the European buyers come to meet with us and Brand USA and our other partners. They're doing strong. They have a new CEO leader who's a good industry friend of many of us. Excited about that. Excited about our partnership with them. We'll also be participating in their India sales mission in the beginning of the year in January. So we're definitely monitoring that and working closely with them. To back up to your question about KLM and Delta, yeah, I didn't cover that. But if anyone has noticed or has read the news, Delta Airlines is actually no longer operating the flight from Amsterdam to Portland. It's operated now by KLM, their joint venture partner. So they share profit, loss, et cetera. They also do that with Korean Air. Delta Airlines does. Delta's strategy for international flights is daily nonstop. That is not really something that PDX can support year-round. So they reduce frequency to a few days a week during the winter. I think it's 3 days a week during the winter, right?
3 days a week starting October 27th, KLM.
And in our eyes, and we see this with British Airways too, with the London flight, and Air Canada too. Anytime you have, we call them flag carriers, so that's the flag carrier for that country. Anytime you have a, quote, flag carrier operating a route, you typically have a stronger inbound surge because people trust their hometown brand, if you will, a little more. So KLM coming into the market as opposed to Delta gives us a slight competitive advantage on the inbound side, maybe less so on the outbound corporate side. But definitely we see it as a win in that way because people trust that brand name.
And I just want to say this too. About a month ago, I had an opportunity to tour through the Redmond Airport, and very impressive in terms of what's happening. So it's not by accident that where they're at right now. So yeah, it's exciting to see what the opportunities will bring from the international market here.
Very briefly, if I may, David, in response to your question regarding the collaboration with Brand USA and some of the things that are going on there, Greg touched on it, but Brand USA is still present in, excuse me, in Japan, in Korea, in China. We're there with them. They've done their sales missions into Japan and Korea. So even though the air service isn't there is still air service to the U.S. that would then feed travel to Oregon, especially Delta Air Service over Seattle. China may not return in the same way it was prior to the pandemic, but it's still a market of 1.5 billion people, roughly, with a pent-up demand to travel and to the U.S. and a desire to travel to the U.S. So the airlift that's where it's lagging right now. It's airlift of any kind from China into the U.S. is behind. So we're kind of just to the commissioner formerly known as the chair, Youngblood, noted it's long ball in China right now because you're building up that demand for that what is now really incremental return of air service. In the meantime, to your point, we've been working in India for a number of years, and we're there before a number of other states were actually moving into India. We were able to afford to do that because we were working in alignment with Brand USA. And that's, again, another market of roughly 1.4, 1.5 billion people. English is not a barrier. Again, there's not as much airlift as we would like to see, but that's something that's being addressed as well, and it's a market that's showing tremendous opportunity for us, for the future. So we're definitely there. Yeah. Any other comments or questions for Greg or for Greg?
Lorna and Greg, thank you so much for the presentation, and more importantly, thank you for representing Oregon. Those pictures are wonderful. It looks fun. You're eating amazing pizza. You're drinking amazing Oregon wine, and I know those days are long for you. You have a smile on your face, and you're excited for that visitor that you're trying to sell to get to Oregon. Thank you for being that face of Oregon and putting that time in. We appreciate it, and the state benefits from your work. My question related to the adjusted recovery data, was that something that they presented that data before having everything available to them, or did they go back trying to adjust data?
Typically, if you recall historically, when we've had that data presented, we usually actually have that data presented at this meeting, because that does allow them to adjust. So to answer your question, they knew they were going to be incorporating CIOT data when they came to us in the spring, and that was why he alluded to it not being a final. So yeah, they were adjusted from. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's really the gist of it. I think in the future, we'll probably work closely with them to say, okay, let's time that presentation differently maybe. Because we do like to have tourism economics come out to talk about it. I think it's helpful because they're able to get into the weeds on the methodology, et cetera.
Perfect. Thank you.
Travis.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on Greg, yeah, excellent. Looked like a great event. But when you go into an event like that, are you looking for measurables? Or are you just doing like brand exposure? Are you gathering data from the individuals stopping by? Are they entering any type of QR code for some type of package or the itinerary? You mentioned that, so.
Sure. The itinerary bookings are some things that many times, because we don't own our channels, like we don't own America As You Like It, right? So we'll hope that they will provide us booking numbers from the package they introduced at the show. Because of privacy laws, et cetera, in Europe in particular, we don't tend to track people like QR code, enter to win, those types of things. For two reasons, again, privacy. Second, there's just no drive to do it. People aren't interested in sharing that information, really. So the push for us is to have those operators there selling their product that kind of highlights the garden in that way. So it is probably more of an awareness play in that space.
Thank you.
Yep. And again, not only awareness of the destination, but awareness of the product that's available. That's why we work so closely with the tour operators, is to drive traffic into their operations in the hopes that they'll sell PAX information with us at the appropriate time. So like you said.
Thanks, Todd.
David.
Greg and Lorna, thank you for the presentation. And Lorna, thank you for your passion. And certainly, I'm a master gardener, and I was the presentation resonated, and I really enjoyed and was excited to see the focus on Oregon native plants and keystone plants. And it also, your presentation aligned, maybe it's coincidence, but we discussed immersive experiences, and it really aligned with that. So, and I do want to say that gardeners are active too, so it struck that chord in our presentations from yesterday.
Yeah.
So I wondered if this will be an ongoing commitment. So looking down the road, sometimes repeating an experience will increase momentum and interest in engagement and further opportunities for international travelers into Oregon to experience our gardens and our environment. So that was one question. And then on to Greg's question, is the Royal Horticultural Society able to share data on the number of interest in the Oregon garden from their side? So just high-level numbers.
Little numbers, well, their attendance and certainly our crowd was a good indication that Oregon was popular. We don't get any specific data to Oregon, that they provide for us. Would love to, that would be wonderful, but again, it's proprietary to what they do, and I'm not certain that they actually measure specifically which locations were the most popular. Just going by our crowd size and by what we see, they certainly were. As far as ongoing, this isn't our first show. We've done this before. I think this is our 4th or 5th year, and we do have plans for the next year, for 2025. They're underway already. The design of the garden has been brought forward to us to take a look. We've made a few tweaks, and I think we have Belinda's sister camper van lined up for a repeat performance. So we're very excited about that opportunity, and that the planning for that is really, it's already underway.
Fantastic.
Sounds like
Thank you for your work.
that's an opportunity for commissioner engagement, since you have a master gardener sitting on this commission. And I just, Lorna, I'm always in admiration of the work that you do. You were just down 2 weeks ago at the Mill Casino with a group of Belgians. And to Greg's point, the fact that you can show up and deliver every day the way you do and make it meaningful for the participants who you take all over the state is, I'm in complete admiration of you. I
My gosh.
truly, I just admire the work that you do. Greg, we talked about on the bus last night that sometimes the work that's done here, it's not about the numbers, it's about the relationships. And I think why I know that we like some of those numbers, I think it's really, those long-term relationships that will drive people to this great state at some point. So thank you both for the presentation and for the work that you do.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much.
And maybe just one last follow-up for those of you who may not know in the audience, because today is a day where we are playing fast and loose with the chair title. I would like to make sure that, in deference to the conversation about the importance of our relationship with Brand USA, our nation's destination marketing organization, that everyone here acknowledge that Chair Davidson is in fact the Brand USA present board chair and would never have mentioned that to you himself, but that relationship that we have with Brand USA is nurtured and fostered at every level up to and including Todd's direct engagement throughout his career, but especially now as board chair. So thank you, Todd, for your service to our nation as well as our state.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Greg?
Well, I was just
Harish, please.
130,000 over how many days for that Hampton court?
7 days.
7 days. No, I was tickled by it because I've been to Hampton Court, and just a few months ago I attended a wedding there. So I'm impressed the way these things are happening. I had no clue that these shows happen there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say, I'm still interested in the work you guys do to move as you move forward, because their platform is huge, and there are opportunities there. And so I look forward to, in the future, learning more how we're going to leverage that through the work that you guys do.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you both very much.
thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. By the way, reference was made to that recent Belgian FAM tour. A lot of the FAM trips in Oregon probably run anywhere from 4 to 6 days. That one was 14. So that was, and her smile was just as big on day 1 as it was on day 14, because that's how Lorna moves. So thank you, Lorna, very, very much. Commissioners, we're at a point in our agenda where we had a scheduled break, so we're going to take a moment here and let you stretch your legs, refill the coffee cups. Let's be back in our seats, please, in 10 minutes. Okay? All right, Commissioners, continuing on with the reports and updates from your Travel Oregon staff team, it's my pleasure to turn this portion of the program over to Scott Bricker and to Kate Baumgardner to provide us with an update on our Y Guides program, as well as some very specific survey results that we'd undertaken with that Y Guides group. So with that, Scott, I believe you're leading off. I'll turn it over to you. Sir.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, Todd. Chair DeNovo, Vice Chair Willis, members of the Commission, thanks for having us. My name is Scott Bricker, and I serve as Director of Destination Services in the Destination Stewardship Department at Travel Oregon. And yes, I'm joined here by Kate Baumgartner, who's our External and Public Affairs Strategist. I always have to look at your title and make sure I get it right at Travel Oregon. So we're excited to be talking to you today about this topic. Travel Oregon has been working with guides and outfitters for over a decade to support their operations and as a key element of the industry. We know that the guides and outfitters, as we have some here on the commission and I think some in the room as well, are a key aspect of the industry that generally make up small businesses who are passionate people, business owners, as well as employees of people who really care about this state, who offer this opportunity for people to come and visit a community and to have a local experience guided by a local expert, and to really have an opportunity to uncover what is in the community and do it in a unique way that is also safe, because that's a key piece, and also provides eyes on the ground for our communities. So the safety piece, we have people who don't necessarily always have the understanding of how to recreate properly or can want to expand their boundaries, and guides can help make that happen. As well as guides can be boots on the ground on outdoor recreation communities to ensure that behaviors are happening properly and even to highlight key destination management issues. During the pandemic, back in 2021, Travel Oregon developed the Y Guides program. The goal of the program was to help with destination recovery and to support the small businesses. It was developed actually by our global sales team, by Gabby Duarte, who, as we've heard just a few minutes ago, a key part of the supply chain are these guide businesses who participate in the global supply chain. One of the elements of this was to not only understand what these guides were offering, so we opened up a registry, which has over 150 businesses today, to share what are your offerings, but then to help plug those into the supply chain and market those businesses as well. Today, the program has moved over to the Destination Services team, which is why I'm here. The program is actually managed by Hillary Steger, who is our program manager. She's not available to be here today, so all the great information, thank you, Hillary, for putting that together, all the stumbles, those are on me. Our team had been working with guides and outfitters prior under destination development, so it was a natural place for us to bring the program. We also wanted to expand the program outside of marketing and sales and add in business development and guide development activities. We have several that are listed here on the screen now, and I'll go into some more of those as my presentation develops. We also want to make sure that the program is meeting the timeline of the guides and the companies that tend to have a seasonality to their business. So we open our registry each year at the end of what would be the typical busy season in September, and then we deliver programming throughout the shoulder and slowest seasons, and then take a break in the programming. We also do an annual survey, which is what we're going to focus the rest of the presentation on, is what are the values that companies are getting out of these programs, and what are some of the challenges. So we had, I think, did we just skip this slide? I want to make sure. We had 35 responses to the survey that we did this year, so these are 35 unique businesses. Of those businesses, 88% of the respondents were either very or extremely likely to recommend the program to other businesses. So we were, of course, excited about the interest and desire to the participation in this program. From a standpoint of what they found most valuable, hold on a sec, I just want to make sure I have the right slide there. Okay. There really was in a couple of two primary areas of what was most valuable. One was that these businesses really liked getting together and meeting each other and networking. Over the last few years, we've had multiple opportunities where we've offered scholarships to the business owners to come to events like our Governor's Conference on Tourism or the Oregon Outdoor Recreation Summit. And at those events, we will have meetings where we'll have facilitated conversations, usually over a lunch, or it could be, just over a conference, kind of a conference setting. And we really try and build in business networking elements as well as sharing about what's working, what's not working, and having an opportunity for those business owners to meet each other, network, and learn from each other. The other piece is around training for guides and the employees of those companies. Most popular this year were our first aid and CPR training, and a new training that we offered in partnership with OSU called Elevate Outdoors, which is really around DEI and accessibility for frontline staff. A few other notes that I just think are interesting is the amount of the businesses that took this survey that are offering accessible tours in different ways, whether it's for mobility limitations, to different affinity groups, hearing disabilities, etc. We've also heard from those companies challenges with offering those services and the costs associated with those services. So we'll go into those a little bit next. Also, one of the elements that we were really excited about was the number of businesses that are offering, and we will also go into this, that are interested in offering full year opportunities. And not only does that help destinations and communities have product that would be available all year, but from a workforce development standpoint, it also helps with year-round employment. And we know that that can be one of the challenges in tourism industry. So having a 12-month programming is a way to help address some of those areas. So then, of course, we wanted to find out what else can we do to support you effectively. And areas of interest really fall in, I think, three big buckets. One is, again, around this full year offering or the 12-month offering. And so I kind of went into that, but I think that there's a continued desire for these companies to offer winter tours and shoulder season tours. Another is really around a deepening collaboration with the local people, indigenous people, and tribal members, as well as trying to bring different types of people onto the tours. So I think it's really about a cultural exchange of people from outside coming in and wanting to make sure that tours are open and offered to all different types of people, but also to really try and deepen that exchange at the local and community level, and especially with tribes. And then finally, it's really around sustainability. So trying to provide tours that are more sustainable to our environment and our communities. And I just want to say, from our perspective, all these areas line up directly with our strategic vision. So we think that there's really exciting work to do in this space. Finally, we'll move to the challenges, and of course, that's soon where I'm going to hand it over to Kate. Deal with the tough stuff. But we've known for years, really, for the decade plus we've been working with tour operators, that permits is a big challenge. There's multiple different agencies, from federal to state to local, different types of lands that you can operate on: the U.S. Forest Service land, a BLM land, a Oregon Parks and Recreation Department land. You have to get permits through the Oregon State Marine Board, et cetera. So this is an area we've been touching on for some time, and we're continuing to meet with those agencies to try and figure out if there are solutions available. I'm not promising that we're going to make those, but we just think it's an important long game to us to continue to try and collaborate with those state agencies. And then finally, that's your slide, isn't it? Okay, I'll let you have that slide. So, and then finally, we've heard a lot about liability and insurance. And there's been, from a legislative standpoint and whatnot, and this is a big topic, and this is where I pass off the big topic to Kate. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning, Commissioners. Nice to be with all of you again. This is a topic we've discussed briefly in previous meetings, but excited to bring some additional perspective to that conversation today. So to ground us in an understanding, you may remember from our conversation in June that we discussed that court cases over a series of recent years have effectively nullified liability waivers in Oregon. So when you're participating in fee-for-service recreation, whether that's up at Mount Bachelor, going skiing, or taking a jet boat ride, that process where you sign away your rights to seek damages, those waivers are basically no longer enforceable in Oregon. We have seen a number of organizations under the umbrella of the Protect Oregon Recreation Coalition come together to attempt to address this legislatively, essentially reinstating some liability coverage while folks are still able to seek damages for gross negligence, which would bring us on par with all states across the West that have the large recreational economies that we do. Thus far, those efforts have not been successful, but we know that there's likely ongoing effort to try to seek solution there. The Protect Oregon Coalition was successful in a short-term fix for the separate but related issue of recreational immunity. That's one we discussed more at length in June, but is specific to access to public lands for free on improved trails. A lot of the coverage there has been reinstated, but only short-term and will sunset at the end of next year. So as we look towards the long session in 2025, it's likely that the Protect Oregon Recreation Coalition and a number of other partners are coming together to try to work for long-term solutions in both of these spaces. And in terms of Travel Oregon's role in those conversations, we know that we have a statutory role to assess challenges that the tourism and recreation industry face and make decision makers aware of those challenges. As you know, and as we've discussed, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're lobbying or taking positions on certain bills, but we have a role to be information conveners and sharers, and looked at this opportunity with our Y Guides program to bring a unique understanding to the conversation about how small businesses, those sole proprietor guides, those 1, 2, 5 employee businesses, how they're affected and how they're seeing these impacts, especially knowing that the media coverage and a lot of the broader conversation has been focused on some of those major recreation stakeholders like our large ski areas. So with my appreciation to Hillary, we were able to add some questions to the annual survey this year to understand how guides were experiencing these challenges in their businesses. And we did choose to make those questions both optional and open-ended, knowing that there's some sensitivity here. But we know that our guides were interested to engage. Of the 35 folks who were surveyed, 27 chose to respond to these liability questions, and I'll share our findings with you next. So we began with the question, we're aware that both costs of liability and property insurance have increased substantially in recent years, and some insurers have canceled coverage. If this is something your business has experienced, please share any details that will better help us understand these challenges. And in response to that question, all but 3 respondents, or 88% of respondents, indicated that this has been a notable challenge for their business, citing both increased costs and challenge with insurance carriers. 7 of the 24 respondents, or 25%, indicated that they'd either been dropped from their insurer or they've had to switch insurance in order to make costs tenable. 1 respondent indicated that they had a larger scale event planned on public land last year, and they were required to bring on some special one-day event insurance due to the scope and scale of the event. There was no insurer provider in the state that was willing to provide coverage at the higher limits required by the land manager for that event, regardless of cost. Several others have indicated that liability coverage options have become so limited they find it nearly impossible to retain adequate coverage, and they've been rendered entirely unable to do any sort of rate shopping or comparison. And in general, costs have been a major focus of feedback. 62% of respondents, or 17, had major challenges around increasing costs. Some of those perspectives shared included annual increases from anywhere to 20 to 50%. 1 proprietor who said that they had been paying about $600 annually for insurance coverage in the liability space is now paying $3,400 annually. What I found most especially concerning were the 4 businesses, or the 14% of our respondents, who indicated that the costs have become so untenable they are facing existential crisis and questioning if they can continue to stay at business at all with these costs. Next, we discussed the legal challenges. So we asked respondents, since legal challenges around liability waivers have emerged, has your business experienced any lawsuits or threat of lawsuit related to liability? If you have, has your insurer encouraged proactive settlement of those lawsuits due to lack of adequate waiver coverage? We've heard some indication that this is a challenge some of the major ski areas and other major recreation stakeholders are facing, and we wanted to be sure how we understood the small outfitter experience as well. And with a couple exceptions, respondents largely indicated they have not yet experienced legal suits or threats of suits. 1 guide suggested that due to the small personal nature of their business, they may be a less likely culprit for the litigious behavior of some customers than some of those larger recreation opportunities, which was an interesting perspective to hear. Several other respondents indicated that they've taken on what's called a bifurcated waiver process, which is essentially participants are signing a typical waiver, and then in the process they have to actively mark whether they are waiving all coverage or they are choosing not to waive the business in question. And if so, they need to go back to the front desk or the business ambassador and pay an additional fee, recognizing that the company is taking on additional risk for participation. One thing I will note here is even those who have taken on that bifurcated waiver process still indicated serious challenge around liability coverage and cost of insurance as well. So it's not necessarily been a solve-all for those challenges. And finally, we asked if the liability challenges posted any additional impact to their business. A few folks understandably shared here that these processes have been time-consuming and challenging to understand and to stay up to date on the legal happenings. When we think about those small businesses, those sole proprietors, certainly understanding that they wear a lot of hats and being their own legal expert is typically not one of them. So understand that that's certainly challenging. A couple others use this space to indicate challenge specific to the city of Portland, where PBOT, or the Portland Transportation Bureau, has chosen to categorize tour guides who are picking up customers anywhere in Portland city limits as taxi cabs. And that's created some additional insurance challenges for them, I think likely in the auto space. Given that's a pretty city bureau specific focus, that's a finding we've gone ahead and shared with Travel Portland for their consideration for future action. So with these survey findings overall, we're prepared to engage in conversation, both in line with statute and our role as a state agency, to inform others of the challenges that this industry is facing. In addition to sharing these findings with you this week, it is legislative days at the state capitol. I've already had one virtual meeting with a state senator who indicated they were interested in our perspective on this issue. I'm certainly prepared to have additional conversations with legislators as they understand this challenge moving into the long session. And with that, happy to transition to questions and appreciate everyone's time.
Yep. Harish, please.
Well, I know this insurance is a challenge for even lodging operators. They're cherry picking, they're just dropping, any motel in a rural area or by the age, they're literally cherry picking, and there's some people have doubled, and like I said, they've been dropped. And this legal issue, I think, is people don't know yet that they can sue, and there'll be probably one or two high-profile cases, and then people will start doing it. So it's a challenge. It's a worry. So.
Absolutely. Really appreciate that, Commissioner Patel. And I think what we've heard from some of those broader recreation providers, ski areas, rafters, et cetera, is that folks who know that they can sue also know that they're likely in some space where settlement may be encouraged by some insurers as well. So that may be why we're not seeing some of those broad press coverage pieces, because they're not actually getting through the court system. There's some proactive settlement. But I definitely appreciate the perspective from the lodging concern and understand it's something that's being faced around the state. Yeah, thanks.
Please.
You may have covered this and I may have missed it, and if so, I apologize, but is there a corollary between our lack of liability, insurance waiver viability, I'm struggling, sorry, and the insurance costs? I guess let me rephrase. Are insurance carriers penalizing Oregon guides and outfitters on their premiums because they understand that they, the insurer, carry a greater liability since waivers aren't valid?
Yeah, I would be curious with a couple of our guides who are maybe active in Washington or Idaho if there's a perspective that they're able to share about rate that is maybe being paid in another state where they're active. That's not feedback that we've received thus far, but I think opens up an interesting question. My understanding is that the carriers that are active in the state are well aware of this issue, and that's why several have chosen to exit entirely in terms of the coverage options that they're providing, and others, that's been sort of the use case for the increase in fees that they've been seeing. Of course, there are other insurance costs that are going up elsewhere around the country, right? I mean, try to buy a house in Florida right now and you can't even get coverage, but my understanding is that specific to sort of these business liability pieces that those insurers are well aware, and that's been active conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Todd?
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah. First, thank you for a great presentation, as always. With the survey that you just completed, I think I heard 88% would recommend the Y Guides program. And I know that this commission, I thought we got an update last year when we were all excited with the program and the success of it, and we said, when are you going to get more guides? And so I know we're at 150, and so I'm wondering, how will you use the information that you've received from this survey to attract additional guides? Because quite honestly, I think having that experience makes a person's visit and experience remarkably different when they're using one of those guides.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chair DeNovo. I'm trying to see if I have an actual answer to your question. When we open up the registry, we ask our tourism partners to distribute that information. So we do it through our normal newsletter. We ask our companies who are part of the Y Guides program to distribute it, our DMOs. So we do try and get the information out there quite widely through our normal industry communications channels, through our partners and whatnot. Specifically, I don't know that we have a very targeted strategy where we're calling up different companies and saying, hey, can you invite your friends? So, it's more through our typical channels that we're getting the word out. I do think that these companies do network with each other on the side, and so our hope is that they will share that information. I know that the value of the program, starting with the marketing and sales connections to some of these other pieces, are really helpful. And I think also as guides see more of that information, more of that marketing happening, that will also help entice them into the program. So I don't know if I've really answered your question fully. And we just are in the process of closing the registration. So I would be happy in a future update to share a final number.
But in the meantime, a good call to action is that it's currently open, right, until I think October 1st.
Yes,
so
thank you.
Get your friends to sign up if folks are curious of the offerings.
October 7th.
7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
David. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate having both of you here, giving us an update. And I will say this, IPW, congrats to your team, Todd, because the program itself, I've heard in many rounds table discussions, they're sharing information, how so many people there can leverage it as well. The scholarship programs are great, and Scott, you did a great job at the Governor's Conference trying to facilitate a discussion with the guides to increase their willingness and ability to collaborate and work together and problem solve and do whatever. So what a great discussion to sit in on as you navigated that whole discussion there. The one thing about the guides, I will say this, and I don't have a number, but when you go through some of the communities, it's not just the guide, but it's the impact they're having on the businesses and the communities. So when they're bringing the visitors in, it's not just a little guided down the river, what have you, but it's the businesses that they're going in, spending money, and I see this on a regular basis. So it has a bigger impact on our community, and so I'm so happy that Travel Oregon is taking a stance in terms of helping to leverage that in terms of the value of these guides and what they bring. Because if you look at, Oregon Restaurant and Lodging, what a well-established system for helping many of the members. But these guides are so small, to your point, they don't have the time, the resources to do what they need to do to stay afloat. And with all the changes out there, and the last thing I'll say, as it relates to the insurance piece, there's, even with the underwriters, there's a lot of consolidation. And with that consolidation, we see a shrinking because of risk management that, oh, well, wait a minute. You're this type of a company, a tour or a guide or whatever it is. And so they're no longer insuring, or they're fading those out. And we're seeing that a lot. I've had some discussions with some of the agents, insurance agents, in terms of the relationships and the shift that they've seen in this industry. And it's having a huge impact on the guides. And so anything that we can do, I think it will help, and it's so important.
Yeah, I just want to chime in and thank you for that, Commissioner Pendleton. I do think, and I'm not a guide business, so I don't have, I'm not running the books. I know you obviously know, and Commissioner Rowe as well, much more of the details here. But we do think there's a semi-fragile ecosystem, and that was one of the reasons that we were excited as an agency to also help award grants during that COVID period that was through Oregon Economic Development Department to us, Business Oregon to us, and we were able to award funds to tour operator, guide, and outfitter companies who were struggling and having specific issues related to from COVID and other natural disaster areas. We hear from guide companies that things like wildfire smoke or other types of natural features like that can have a significant impact on their operations. And that's where things like permitting come in. If you want to even be able to offer a trip somewhere else, even if you have that flexibility as a company and the visitor may be willing to adjust, you may not be allowed to do that. And to your point on how that could potentially have a trickle-down impact to the other businesses who are expecting you to come in, whether it's through hotels, restaurants, and whatnot. So we do think that this is an area for continued work at the agency. And I thought it was an exciting opportunity when we did have a chance to provide funding to help with that recovery of guides as well.
Okay. Jen, please.
Thanks, guys. Jennifer Rowe. I work in this space every day, so certainly everything that you're talking about here today, I have lots of answers and probably more questions beyond them. But thank you so much for the work that you're doing, the work that's been done in the past 7 or 8 years. If you back up into 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, this was not even a conversation. And so I just applaud Travel Oregon, the commission, and all of the staff in the work that you're doing. It does matter. I know sometimes it probably feels like you're inching along. You have 150 guides. Well, 10 years ago, you had none. You wouldn't have seen anyone at Travel Oregon's conference at the GovCon. So you're starting to see enough to have an actual conversation and find out what are your pain points, what can we do to help. So don't be discouraged. It's working. I would like to just reflect a little bit on the small business aspect of guides. Keep in mind that some of the guides and outfitters, they may be running what you might consider a business that's working, but they're maybe working another job or maybe 2 other jobs. A lot of them are very small operators, and guiding is part-time. It's their passion, it's their dream, and they hope to get there. But it's also really super hard to get engaged because you don't have time. So I don't know the answer necessarily, other than how do you crack the nut to get in front of those folks and make it where they see the value in taking the time. I wonder, a question to this is, do you work with any of the guide organizations? Is America Outdoors a part of the conversation with you, or the state organization?
We have done some work. Thank you for the perspective and the question, Commissioner Rowe. I'm actually forgetting the name, but we have done some work.
UGA?
UGA, right? The Oregon Outfitters Guide Association. Thank you. With UGA in the past, which in my perspective has been somewhat of a nascent organization. For a minute in time, they had an executive director who was actually on staff, and that we thought was a really exciting opportunity. And I think that there is an opportunity for collaboration with UGA to support this work, and I'd be open to having an additional follow-up conversation about what that looks like. We do collaborate in other areas with organizations that have a similar role, whether it's the Oregon Trails Coalition or other types of groups that work in spaces that are priority for us, and collaborate and partner in different ways to help advance key industry sectors and niche sectors that we think are important. So I'd love to have that follow-up conversation if you think that there's a there, an opportunity there. At a national level, a little bit less so. We have been involved, and I've been involved in some conversations years ago, and I think maybe Kate, you're on the mailing list, but there is definitely some national level work that's happening that is probably more advocacy oriented for guides and outfitters at the federal level, and I think we're looped into them. I personally am not interfacing with them regularly.
We're, I think, now officially members of the Outdoor Industry Association, right? So seeing communications from them, and have watched a webinar or two, but certainly I think when it comes to those small businesses and those, part-time folks and things like that, maybe that there's opportunity to find some more of those convening voices, and certainly appreciate your feedback and expertise in that space too. So, and I know Hillary would as well. And then I'll say that our relationship with the Marine Board, who is the one who certifies most of the guides and outfitters in the state, also is strong and ongoing. So that's another space where we've found some opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah, I think it would be also important for you guys to recognize there's the Oregon State Marine Board piece, but then every outfitter that's working on public lands, they have to have a permit with BLM. So are they in the conversation? And they also have to have a permit if they're working in any kind of national forest. Are they, those land managers, part of the conversation for you? And then as far as the waiver part goes and insurance, there are a lot of resources available at the America Outdoors level and that federal level that you're speaking about, where I don't think every guide and outfitter, they can't afford to be a member necessarily, or they don't have the time or don't see the value. Maybe it's a trust thing, I'm not sure, but maybe that's where you can fill the gap in what you're doing and have those conversations with America Outdoors to start sharing across where they're doing the work and how they can sign on the dotted line to help support some of those measures coming up. And
yeah, really appreciate that suggestion. Thanks, Commissioner.
Commissioner Pendleton and Commissioner Rowe, you both kind of inspired this thought, and again, it may be something that I've already missed in the dialogue, but in terms of legislative advocacy, you obviously talked about the importance when we have the opportunity to interact on an informative basis with elected officials, that's terrific, either through their invitation or whatever. But Commissioner Pendleton, you brought up, analogously for us in the restaurant and lodging industry, the advocacy that we receive through the private association that is the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. When we talk about UGA or America Outdoors or Protect Oregon Recreation Coalition or anywhere else, is there a legislative advocate on behalf of guides and outfitters that I'm not, that hasn't come up? I mean, when we talk about Orla, it's not the small mom and pop operators that can afford their annual Orla membership and be able to contribute to what becomes a legislative advocacy effort. But if you've got guides and outfitters on one side of this fulcrum and trial lawyers on the other side, I'm not trying to throw rocks because, well, there are none at the table, but someone needs to be able to help these people, and we, as appointed officials in a state capacity, have to maintain an element of neutrality. But somebody has to be advocating on these people's behalf. And if I've missed this in the conversation, there's already an association to whom I can make a private donation. I need to understand who that is.
Well, I'll let you make your own decisions on whatever donation speaks to you, Commissioner Youngblood. So I'll maintain my neutrality there. But what I'll say is that Protect Oregon Recreation Coalition really is as I understand it, organizing umbrella for this work moving forward. There are a number of people kind of at the table in those conversations, the Pacific Northwest Ski Area Association being one of the most active and recognizable in these spaces. This is also a space that a lot of gym operators have gotten invested in because, I took a Pilates class at a new studio yesterday, which you'll notice when I try to stand up out of this chair. But but I had to sign a waiver as I was doing that, right? So there's a degree of liability waiver relationship there. So I believe those folks have certainly been at the table, space for guides and outfitters to be in those conversations, and then kind of those other larger, jet boat operators, rafting operators, et cetera, some of whom participate in Y Guides, but some of whom kind of operate at a higher level. So that's been, I think, the convening force for a lot of this work, but maybe not necessarily like an official membership organization.
I really appreciate the insights and the added names. Thank you. And then Mr. Brecker, early in the presentation, we talked about, I don't want to get this wrong, but I interpreted it as seasonality and the ability to generate revenue year-round as a concern that came up, that was discussed in the survey instrument. And I was hopeful that you could give an example of what, because I think of guide work as so seasonal. There's, a season for mushrooms, there's a season for steelhead, there's a season for snow skiing, and in the absence of having a really established tour operator that, packs away the summer season gear and gets out the winter season gear, what are the options in order to help guides and outfitters experience broader seasonal prosperity?
Great question, Commissioner Youngblood, and I'm also happy to take some advice from the experts on the commission. But I will say that, so there are more established companies, I guess I would say, that have more resource to be able to develop and go into the opportunistic and potentially, what's the word I'm looking for, risky business of expanding their operations to a multi-season, or outside of what might be their normal bread and butter and big time. So we've seen definitely an expansion of things like snow-related tours, snowshoe tours and whatnot, an expansion into snow sports. And there are things like right now, dark sky was mentioned, which has been a growing area of interest, not only of the public, but of an opportunity to have a guided experience. Because you can look up in the sky and it's really beautiful, but when someone's showing you with the laser pointer that feels like it's touching the stars, what's actually going on? And actually some of the best nighttime viewing is in the more winter months and in some of those shoulder seasons, obviously when it's not cloudy, would help. And then it depends on what kind of tours. If you're a city tour environment, you can offer city tours, walking tours, different types of tours. Fishing guides will take different types of seasons. But yeah, I think if you're a classic river rafting guide, it may be a little bit more challenging to figure out how do I operate in winter. Or if you do mountain bike shuttles and a lot of hiking and backpacking tours, it may be a little bit more difficult. And that's what we heard from the companies, that there's a desire from them that if there was, what we asked is if there was financial resource available, what would help your business? And a top one was to expand their operations into into more seasons. And that, again, that comes with risk. So that would be a potential area for them to invest if they had additional resource.
Thank you for the question. And because if I have an opportunity to summarize with a punchline, I'm not going to miss it. So what you're describing in terms of the supplemental funding and resource, it's both about being able to give a guide a fish. Anyone? And teach a guide to fish. Stop it. I'll stop.
So I don't want to hijack any more time here, but I'm very open to have a conversation. I think you both know that, and Hillary certainly knows that. So if I can be helpful in the space, let me know. And then I think if I will just say one thing to kind of recap what Commissioner Youngblood has put before us is that, whew, I got it right. So when it comes to the seasonality thing, there are so many layers. Permitting, as you mentioned, and then so you can't just go and operate if you have a great idea. It can take time to get your permit to go and do dark sky tours in the middle of winter. Well, okay, so now you're looking at a 2-year lead time before you can ever even start to operate in that space. That's hard. Depending on if you're crossing lines into 2 national forests or onto BLM space. Now you have all these other permits that you have to get and pay for and make sure you've filled it out correctly and have the relationships with those land managers. That's just one piece of it. Then will your insurance, it goes on. And again, I don't want to hijack our time here. So it's a big conversation, and again, thank you so much that it's even a conversation, because again, 10, 20 years ago, we weren't even at the table. So yay.
Thanks so much.
But I will say this in closing, sorry, Chair. But the work that Travel Oregon does in terms of marketing Oregon as a destination and looking at it not just as a seasonal piece, but with the shift has helped tremendously, because to your point, Scott, a lot of these guided services have a window of time, just like you and I with any business. They're strapped with resources that they can utilize to maximize the profitability in this short window of time. And so with the efforts that's being done, it helps to extend that out, which actually helps the guides tremendously. But this is a discussion we could have all day. I just wanted to say that, it has made a difference with the work of Travel Oregon and others.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott. Thank you,
so
Kate.
much.
Great presentation. Great work on that survey, too. We're here in Central Oregon. We've all had the opportunity to not only experience the beauty of this place, but also the bounty of this place and the hospitality of this place. And so it's only fitting that while we're here, we also take a moment to kind of pause and talk about, I'm going to call it a first ever program, if I could, Alexa. We do a number of destination management studios, or studios in various ways, but not always at the regional level. And it's both a complex and a very encouraging undertaking when we do that. And so it's my pleasure to turn this portion of our program over to Alexa Carey, who is our Destination Stewardship Strategist, to take us through an update on our Central Oregon Destination Management Studio. And you are joined by quite a panel, and I will let you introduce them, Alexa, at the appropriate time.
Perfect. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here today. We're excited to talk to you about something that doesn't quite have such a sexy acronym as the CODMS, but the Central Oregon Destination Management Studio, which, as you alluded to, we're in a little bit of a different design here, because this is our largest region that we've ever delivered for a management studio. You've seen us deliver the Columbia Gorge, the North Coast, but now we're covering 3.5 counties across Crook, Deschutes, South Wasco, and Jefferson. Awesome. So I'm going to take you through a bit of the details of what to expect coming out of this program. I'm joined up here. You've met me as the strategist in our role at Destination Stewardship. I'm joined here alongside the team that you've already met across Scott and Harry and Kevney and April in the room. But I also get to introduce you to the regional programs team, who has such a wealth of both experience and capacity that we could not deliver this program without them. Not only do we have Christine with 2 decades of experience, whose relationships and connections and expertise has been able to be so catalytic to this effort and being able to connect to the community, but also Sasha Bosco is our regional programs manager through Visit Central Oregon. And also, Peyton, this is her 3rd week at Visit Central Oregon, and she's up presenting with me. So these are the folks going to be sharing some of their expertise and some of the outcomes, programs, and what the capacity is going to look like going forward, so that we can truly have a catalytic initiative through the management studio. As many of you have seen in the past, we have a 3-prong approach, 3 different phases as we're moving through the studio process. This is our most complex program that we deliver that tends to take quite an extensive period of time. But this didn't just start within this last year. The conversation really started in 2019. And then with COVID and changes and leadership transitions, we had to pause the program. But Visit Central Oregon reached back out and said, we really want to do this still. This is really catalytic as the industry is changing for all of Central Oregon, because it's not just one experience in Central Oregon. You have your high use and gap areas. You have your rural and your urban areas. You have thriving small towns. You have communities that are seeking more tourism. You have some that are saying, pause, please pause. So it's a wide expanse of experience in that respect. So we pulled together a steering committee within that community engagement phase, as well as a very robust core team that includes upward of about 30 different organizations across the full region, looking at all 3.5 counties. And that's been really transformative for designing very customized programming to make sure that we're meeting the needs of not just urban, but rural, and making sure that we're providing solutions that can work for everyone in different respects. We've just moved into the engagement phase, which is this exciting space, and we'll talk to you in a bit about what that calendaring looks like, and then we'll move to action. Like all of our programs, we have very strong engagement, but we don't want this to be a plan that sits on the shelf. So this is really moving towards the direction that each community wants to go and being able to pull that into a regional vision so we can define very specific actionable items that are using, I think, what Scott has mentioned in the past around engage and commit, to really have the communities lead forward with us and then be able to commit to specific projects through significant investment, both through CRI that Harry has mentioned, as well as through the destination services budget. So probably one of the most significant investments we've been able to make out of a studio program for one of the regions that's really facing a lot of key challenges that we're going to be able to face and address through this program. In terms of calendaring, here's a quick snapshot of what we have coming up. We just delivered the Destination Stewardship Summit. It was a phenomenal kickoff with 70 different folks that are coming into the room in Redmond. We'll have different product niches coming up, some around culinary and agritourism, heritage arts and makers, high use recreation, and also rural recreation. So we're able to really build out what that looks like. The Outdoor Rec Summit is also coming up in December, so we're very mindful of that. And then we have the Teaming for Action here in Madras at the spot that many of you are visiting right after lunch at the spot. And then we'll close out 6 months later with, hey, we're rounding back up to be like, how did this action manifest, and how do we keep accountability in communities and keep the momentum going? Because at the goal of all of this is taking all of these initiatives with all the hats that community members wear across all of Central Oregon and trying to focus that energy towards alignment, communication, and really strong collaboration, because we have phenomenal communities here. And by being able to design, communicate, and collaborate together, we can get towards that alignment. And we really saw that energy coming out of the Destination Stewardship Summit. Phenomenal conversations. Some folks that it was basically their second day on the job. Some folks who have been in the region for 40 years, who really want to bring that perspective of, this is my community, I really care about it, and this is the trajectory that we want to support around intentional collaboration mirrored with intentional growth. So I'm going to pass it over to Christine. She's going to share a little bit more about the why in this high use area.
Good morning, valued commissioners, Chair DeNovo. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you why Visit Central Oregon is so excited to have launched the program, the Central Oregon Destination Management Studio, as Alexa mentioned, earlier this month in September. Can't believe we're still in September. So to quote the talented Mr. Sam Cook, it's been a long, long time coming. And as Alexa shared, Visit Central Oregon's original invitation to rally the region and partner with Travel Oregon for this dynamic and cross-regional collaboration with our 3.5 counties of Deschutes, Jefferson, Crook, and South Wasco was submitted pre-pandemic. And now what feels like a whole other lifetime away, the region continues to evolve from the demands and recovery from COVID-19, unsettling environmental events, and unbalanced economic conditions. So no longer are Central Oregon's regional DMOs and chambers of commerce conventionally marketing our destinations for heads and beds. Community sentiment and the impact of high visitation have blurred the lines between destination management, environmental stewardship, and economic development. In each of our respective communities, we're being tasked to change visitor mindset with new messaging, bolster the efforts of our regional coalitions and land managers, and tune the voice of tourism for workforce development, workforce housing, and transportation solutions. The Central Oregon Destination Management Studio could not be more timely for striving towards balancing Central Oregon's evolving tourism industry through the value lenses of Travel Oregon's 10-year strategic vision of economy, equity, experiences, and environment. While guided by the 23-25 biennial plan, the Central Oregon Destination Management Program aims to improve community livability and satisfaction in areas facing high visitation and challenges in driving visitation to targeted areas, including our emerging rural destinations. And how fortunate are we to have such a talented powering such talent powering the Central Oregon Destination Management Studio. We simply could not do this work without the joint force of industry colleagues you see presented here, including our core team from Explore Prineville, Explore Sisters, South Wasco Alliance, Visit Bend, Travel Oregon, and yours truly, Visit Central Oregon. And many of us are here with us today. Not everyone's pictured here, but without this committee of rock star leaders across the high desert heart of Oregon, from our most developed areas and also our emerging rural places, we enthusiastically embark on this monumental cross-regional collaboration. We are recruiting Central Oregon Destination Management Studio stewards in our communities, uniting on a common vision of success at every event, with these outcomes in mind to increase engagement and trust and understanding of destination stewardship and the value of tourism to our economy, emphasize the positive impact of tourism revenue infused back into Central Oregon communities via grants and strategic investments, some that we saw last night, develop new product in our food systems, emerging rural communities, and optimize value chains to reduce economic leakage and support tribal tourism, while nurturing authentic relationships and collaborations and more, and a change gonna come in Central Oregon. Finally, please indulge me by giving a quick shout out to our AmeriCorps Rare Placements Carter Goodell and Taylor Wilkie last year, who helped us develop these outcomes in planning steps, in the planning stages of the CODMS. They have successfully evolved into their own professional careers themselves, and we humbly take some credit as a result of their involvement in developing this innovative and collaborative work with us. And today we are excited to welcome Peyton Black to the team, who you'll hear from shortly. Thank you.
Hello, commissioners. Thank you for your time today. So we've had a wonderful opportunity last week and in the weeks upcoming, and as part of the Central Oregon Destination Management Studio, uplifting the studio outcomes that were just on the last few slides, we've organized learning tours that are comprised of subregions within Central Oregon, highlighting local attractions, opportunities, challenges, and current initiatives, and gaining insights in these spaces. These tours are grouped by subregional attractions with similar communities such as Sisters in Redmond or Sun River and Lapine attending together, especially in high-use areas. These tours allow workshop attendees, elected officials, community leaders, to showcase successes and discuss challenges. Live polling conducted during these tours helps capture insights that will shape the customized solutions for workshops in October and November. As you can see, just go back real quick. We successfully last week did 3 out of the 6 learning tours. We were in Deschutes County last week. They went smashingly. We all had a blast, both from folks who had not visited the region and the team who lives there themselves. Thank you. Impact areas. So these impact areas that you see here were developed in collaboration with the steering committee over the last 6 months to prioritize impact areas relevant to communities across the region. And due to the region's size, as they've mentioned, more impact areas were actually added in this destination management studio than the usual. Impact areas are focused on high-level community and livability topics, as well as business and niche-specific topics. This approach will help develop customized solutions with catalytic effects on Central Oregon. And I'll pass it to Peyton.
Hello, commissioners. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Peyton Black. As you've heard, I've just joined the Visit Central Oregon team as their new Rare AmeriCorps member. As regional program specialist this year, a large part of my role will be inheriting the progress that the previous Rare members have made on the Destination Management Studio and working to support and add capacity there. I'm thrilled to be part of this cohort of young professionals that you see up there. We were all drawn to this program to serve and support rural communities throughout the state, and I'm really thrilled to be able to do that in the Central Oregon region. A bit more about myself. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Michigan, and I have a background in rural township planning. And I was really drawn to this role because I'm passionate about community-driven work and collective envisioning projects. I think Oregon is such a beautiful and complex place to study and practice land use practices, economic development, and strategic visioning. And I think that this position will be a great introduction to the diverse strengths and challenges within the region. As you know, and as Christine mentioned, tourism is economically vital throughout the state and specifically in our work in Central Oregon. but the industry must be well managed to ensure its benefits are felt by all while protecting livability, culture, and environmental integrity in the region. So our goal with the Destination Management Studio is that it will help us better understand and manage the impacts of visitation on those resources. So my role will be to support the Central Oregon Destination Management Studio by adding capacity to the team, specifically assisting with community engagement, communications, and project management. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to assist with this ongoing process and to join this team and meet you all and serve Central Oregon for the year. Thank you.
Perfect. And on that note, we'd love to open up for questions if there are any.
All right, commissioners, if any of you have any questions or comments you want to share, I can tell you right now, as you can see, the biggest impediment to the success of this program is that there's zero passion for this work at all. Alexa, I do want to give you a little bit of a shout out, if I may, before we open it up for questions. And it's really drafting off of having you in the RARE position. You know what a fan I am of the RARE program, and it's because of you. You've evangelized the RARE program within Travel Oregon, certainly with me personally. You've introduced me to that program. I know of your RARE experience as well, and very fondly recall our conversation at one of our quarterly business reviews where I leaned over to you and it was like, could we ever bring RARE into Travel Oregon? We support RARE in the regions. Could we ever bring it in? And you looked at me and you said, Scott and I are already talking about that. You know? And so now we have two RAREs, and I think they were on day 1 or maybe day 2 of their job. Yeah, thank you. Always happy to be fact-checked. Day 2 of their job, 2 new RAREs that are now working within Travel Oregon were at the Destination Management Studio here in Central Oregon because it's just such an enriching experience. So bravo, my friend, for what you're doing, not only with the studio, but with that RARE program overall. So I just wanted to thank you personally for that work. Commissioners, yes. Commissioners, questions or comments for the panel? I'm sorry, David, please.
Well, I just want to say thank you for being here as well. And Todd's comments resonate a lot with me. Actually, to be honest with you, sitting here and having the 4 of you right here, my first thought was a couple of days ago they had the Women in Tourism and the power within our industry, or shall I say the opportunities that we need to continue to leverage more. So sitting here listening to the 4 of you, it just excites me very, very much. The destination management and your commitment to the community engagement piece speaks volumes. So thank you for your efforts and look forward to continuing to learn more on your progress.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Pendleton.
Any other questions or comments? Greg.
I would just like to comment that the 2 of you together, Christina and Alexa, superpower. It is fantastic. And it's a huge benefit for our region, and all 4 of you at the table, sorry. But it is a huge benefit for our region. And there was something wonderful and intimidating on the first studio I attended. And I recognized it wasn't show up, participate, we're looking for some answers, we're gonna get somewhere. It was show up every time, give us your energy, we're going after a goal here and putting all the fish in this right direction, focused on the same thing. Disappointed I was not able to participate in everything. I sent the much smarter and nicer version of me to in my stead and jump back in when she's unable to attend. But I'm really thankful for the energy that goes into our region and excited for the outcome and having those arrows pointing in all the same direction. Thank you so much for your energy and your superpower.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just, wow, I think everyone has said it. There's a lot of power here, and I felt it too when you were presenting. And I just want to acknowledge you. I focused on, I think, rural tourism planning, I think, is that was your background?
Just rural township planning.
Rural township
Yeah.
planning, sorry. I like tourism, so rural township planning. But I just wanted to thank you. I was raised in the burbs of Portland and moved to Coos Bay and never expected to stay there and really discovered the beauty of rural Oregon. So for someone who has made that type of commitment to improve rural Oregon, I just want to acknowledge your work to just making a big impact on communities that might not have the resources in which to do so. So welcome. I can't wait to see the work that's done over the course of this next year, and thank you for a really great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair DeNovo.
Yes.
All right. I don't see any other questions or comments at this time, so I'll just thank all of you. Alexa, Christine, Sasha, Peyton, thank you very, very much. Power panel for sure, so thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, our final report and update for you this morning is in the area of crisis communications. As you know, one of the strategies within our 10-year vision is about how we support communities in crisis, whether that crisis is a pandemic, or it's wildfire, or drought, or fill in the blank. Sometimes that's very site or situationally specific, as in our support of Portland's recovery, as we've talked about in past meetings. And sometimes it's obviously very what I will call systemic. It's statewide. That's ultimately our call, our responsibility as well, is to make sure that our impacts of our programs are felt statewide. And so developing a crisis communications approach and plan is part and parcel to that effort, and certainly core to that overall initiative. So it's my pleasure to ask Julia, who's our Director of Communications, and Angie with Lawrence PR, to provide us with an update on our crisis communications planning work.
All right, thank you. Hello, Commissioners. As Todd set us up really well there, but again, just to introduce myself, I'm Julia Amato, the somewhat new Director of Communications. I've been here for 7 months, going on 8. I'll be 8 early next month. And I'm joined here today with Angie Galamanis, the owner and director of Lawrence Public Relations, who does all of Travel Oregon's public relations with consumer media, industry media, and has been a critical partner in developing this crisis communications plan. And you'll hear later that some of the regional crisis communications plans that are in the works now. So Todd set us up well in connecting it to our 10-year strategic vision, but I just want to underline that a little bit more and kind of read specifically from that, the priority that this connects to. I think as you get to know me a little bit more, I'm very grounded in that vision, and I am working to align all of our communications efforts to our 10-year strategic vision. So I just want to start there. So this plan was drafted as part of our Assisting Communities in Crisis strategic priority. And reading directly from that priority, Travel Oregon is committed to providing resources and assistance to tourism-related businesses, organizations, and communities that are experiencing or have experienced crises such as wildfires, drought, or a global pandemic. So this crisis communications plan is really the first part of activating on this strategic priority. And just a quick shout out, I'd be remiss not to acknowledge my teammate, Allie Gardner, who did a lot of the work with Angie prior to me coming to Travel Oregon. So thank you, Allie, for your work here. Angie is going to walk us through here in a few minutes of how the plan was informed, how it was created. But before she does that, I really want to ground us in why a crisis communications plan, why kick off that strategy with a plan. The mega wildfires of 2020 certainly taught us that crises don't really respect regional boundaries. We learned that, a crisis in one region can truly affect regions all across the state. And so, during times of crises, being connected and aligned, consistent, accurate with your messaging is critical to navigating those successfully. So that's really why this plan is so important. We identified a need to update our own Travel Oregon's crisis communications plan and then assist our regions with creating theirs. So with that, I will turn it over to Angie, who's going to walk us through how that was done.
Thank you, Julia. So the first step was to recreate Travel Oregon's crisis communication plan. There was a plan in place. It was a little bit dated. Allie and I dug in deep with Office of Emergency Management, which if you ever want to be terrified, talk to Office of Emergency Management about crisis. So many sleepless nights. But we worked really closely with them because really ultimately we will become their partner to help spread the messages that they will be spreading in the event of something truly catastrophic. We also looked at best practices from other like-minded states, and in kind of pulling all of that together, we recreated Travel Oregon's crisis communication plan. I believe you have the Cliff Notes version. You're very lucky. You don't have the full plan, but you have a really nice little Cliff Notes version that kind of gives you a summary of a very robust plan that we created. As of today, Travel Oregon has a fully functioning crisis communication plan as well as a crisis communication team. So in the event of something happening, whether to the agency or in something, kind of broadly affecting the state, Travel Oregon is prepared. In creating that plan, we sort of saw a need for the ability for each of the individual regions to also kind of handle a crisis on their own. And that's when we decided to actually go in, talk to the regions, see who had plans, see who didn't, and go in and help develop plans on their behalf. And the benefit of that is these plans kind of follow that same strategy as the Travel Oregon plan. We're all on the same page. It has been amazing working with the regions. There were a number of regions that didn't have crisis communications plans. There were some that did, but we're like, we don't really know where it is. Very, very common, right? You hope to never have to access it. But we were able to go in and start working with those regions on creating those plans. They will have their own plan. They'll have their own crisis communication team, which will be a huge benefit. And then the next slide really goes into the development of the task force. And the task force is meant to, again, to Julia's point, crises, first of all, they don't understand time of day. They always happen at 3 a.m. And they don't understand regional lines, right? Like we can be all prepared in one region, but that crisis is going to jump lines. And so the task force really has two main components and reasons for being. The first is to kind of offer a support. It's one person from every RDMO as well as someone from Travel Oregon. And the purpose is really to provide support. So if a crisis happens in one region, that maybe that region doesn't have the staff to really support, the task force is able to come together and provide that support for that region going through the crisis. The second, harder purpose is really to step in the event of something truly catastrophic. So if there's a region that has a catastrophic crisis and that team is unable to implement the crisis plan, the task force will step in on their behalf and implement that plan. And these plans are from Travel Oregon to all of the regions. They're purposely template in that it's really easy for someone to go in and see, here's where the messaging is, here's where the key, the contacts, all of our audiences. They are diverse in the potential crises. And Lizzie is here. You can ask her how horrible that kickoff meeting is. And I apologize to Central Oregon because we're going to do it next week. But basically that kickoff meeting is we brainstorm every potential crisis that could hit that region. It is the worst meeting in the world. No one likes me. I leave. I'm sorry. But it's so important because that really is what individualizes each of these regional plans. And so, again, we're able to really have that task force step in the event of something truly catastrophic and support the state. And again, Travel Oregon has a seat at that table. And as we see it, the Travel Oregon Crisis Communication Team would also step up in that regard to help. So the next slide is another kind of Cliff Notes version of what this looks like in action. So Julie is going to talk in a moment about how we tier crises, tier 1, 2, 3, 3 being catastrophic. But in a tier 2 or 3, the RDMO would kind of put out the request that they need additional support for their crisis. They would convene the task force. We would work with the region or Office of Emergency Management to kind of assess the crisis level. We would determine the messaging. Again, often we're pulling messaging from other agencies. In some cases, we're creating it on our own. We're designating a spokesperson. We're sharing holding statements. That is key. Never say no comment. If I leave you with nothing else, please don't say no comment. Developing holding statements. Even if we don't know yet, we will get back to you as soon as we do. We have all of those statements at the ready. We're adjusting as needed, right? Crises, if one thing, they are not predictable and things change on a dime, so we're adjusting as needed. And then the most important part is really reviewing post-crisis, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, seeing if the messages resonated, how did the team work together, and learning for the future.
Great. Thanks, Angie. Yeah, Angie just walked us through the task force, and I'll spend a little bit of time walking us through those different levels of crises. So these are going to really guide when the task force gets together and what constitutes a communications crisis. So we'll start off with level 1. That's a crisis in terms of communications. That's a crisis that's getting a hyper-local media coverage. So that might look like a landslide that's closed a road for a few days. That is going to be something that the task force may not actually ever talk about. It's going to be something that's handled locally, whether that's the local transportation organization or DMO or both together, but that's on the ground, they're handling it locally. Level 2 is something that's getting coverage throughout Oregon and beyond. And just an example of that, I've got Timberline Lodge posted here just a couple months after joining Travel Oregon. If you may remember, in April 2024, the Timberline Lodge caught fire. And Lizzie, getting lots of shout outs today, she right away, she contacted the folks at Timberline Lodge, got the facts, what happened, how long are you closed, what should we tell visitors, where can people go instead, and she reached out to us. She did a phenomenal job managing that on the ground locally, reached out to Travel Oregon Communications, LPR, our Welcome Center teams, so they're on the ground, they're able to redirect folks. If you're, see it in the news, oh no, I was gonna go up to Timberline Lodge, what do I do now? So that was really kind of a perfect example, unfortunately, a perfect example of level 2 in action. Level 3 is what Angie mentioned earlier, the catastrophic event that hopefully never happens, but we need to prepare for, and that's something that's getting national or even global news coverage and is, really that's when the task force is going to come together immediately to support that region in figuring out the messages, how to elevate those messages. Luckily, we have not had to activate on a true level 3 crises in my time here, but the closest thing I think we've come to is the Durkee fire in eastern Oregon this summer, where it was national news. It was the largest wildfire in the nation, and I'm sure we all read about it. So that was, we're in the process of developing these regional plans now, but with this Travel Oregon crisis communications plan in place, I reached out to Elena in Eastern Oregon. She's our main contact, offered her support, gave her some guidance on, how to message things right now, where to turn people to for the most accurate, up-to-date information, because, images make it seem like the entire area is unusable and you can't go there, and that's not necessarily true. So we walked through how to message things, what resources to turn people to. And actually, to Angie's point of the post-crises follow-up, our next meeting with Elena is to talk through messaging of how to come back to Eastern Oregon and how to help us recover from that wildfire. So those are the different levels, and because Commissioner Willits, you mentioned this yesterday, we have another season here in Oregon, and that is wildfire season. So I just wanted to spend another little moment talking about what we are doing as Travel Oregon to help guide visitors, to help guide our regions. And, just to kind of underline the season that we just had, Governor Kotek's August 29th briefing, she said it was unprecedented and costly. And I don't know about you all, but that word unprecedented is a little triggering for me anytime I hear it. And so, it was a big year for us. And just to throw some numbers, the governor said more than 1.5 million acres burned statewide, which is more than double Oregon's 10-year average of 640,000 acres burned per season. So it started earlier. We're not totally out of the clear right now. So again, it's just super important for us to be connected when we have this reality of wildfires. And shedding some light on what we're doing right now,
again, I want to give a shout out to my teammate, Jamie Isett, who really diligently tracks these wildfires using the Watch Duty app. She sends sometimes daily emails. Unfortunately, it was daily a few times this summer to our staff, to our region leads, tracking, what's the containment? Again, what are the facts about these fires? Where can we direct people to, guide people to trip check, go to Air Now to get information on the air quality. So she's really done a phenomenal job tracking these wildfires for us this season. And, just really wanted to underline the importance of that and just the crisis communications plan at large is that timely, consistent, accurate messaging. That's what we're doing with those updates. I have in the notes here to date, she's tracked 60 wildfires across the agency or across the state. And yeah, I think, again, I just want to underline the importance of those emails, these plans, and keeping us all connected and elevating each other's messages. We did that with Visit Central Oregon this summer of kind of on the fly. Again, the plan's in development, but we were able to elevate some messages around Sun River, and they did a phenomenal job mapping out kind of what we do now and what we're going to do after. So we're looking forward to getting those plans in place and, again, offering kind of what next year, maybe there's work to be done pre, during, and post these seasons that unfortunately are not really going to go anywhere for Oregon. So. All right, last slide from us. Next steps. So we've mentioned this several times. We are developing regional crisis communications plans, Central Oregon, Eastern Oregon, Mount Hood Gorge region, Oregon Coast, and the Valley. Portland has its own crisis communications plan, as does Travel Southern Oregon. So it's not that we aren't working with them, it's they have plans that are in place. We have contacts from those regions on our task force as well. And we really want to get those plans in place before we have our first true task force meeting and gathering so that we're all sort of aligned with how we're approaching these crises. And the other next step, I didn't have it up on the slide, is that Angie and I are taking this show on the road and we're heading to the Oregon Coast Visitors Association Summit. October 9th, we'll be offering a keynote lunch session, just walking through what we've done with the coast so far and, showing how important a crisis communications plan is. So I think with that, that's all we have for you all, and welcome any questions.
All right.
And again, thank you for your time.
Well, Angie and Julia, thank you very, very much. Like you said, this is some of the most important work we do that we hope we never have to use.
Right.
Put it on a shelf.
So with that, commissioners, questions or comments for our panel? Greg?
Angie and Julia, thank you so much for the presentation and for your work on this. I view it as very important. And I'm thankful, Governor Kotek addressed this so early. I think we led the state in fires in La Pine, and it was an immediate take care of it, and take care of it in all aspects. I like your follow-up piece as well, and hopefully that occurs following this season. The messaging and the resources are so important before, during, after. During, the technology is caught, sadly for us, and how it's normalized, technology's caught up to keep people informed. Letting people know where to access that technology is so important. Not just the fire, that smoke, the forecasting of where the smoke's going next, because it's such a dynamic pattern. One day you can be turning visitors away, because you should, and then the next day you're looking at blue skies, not necessarily inviting them back for a temporary basis, but having access to that forecast, to that information will help everybody figure out where to visit next in Oregon, and safely and comfortably. Yeah, thanks for the work. I'm so sorry you're doing it. It is a bummer to normalize that this is not going away. But thank you. I'm happy to have you at the helm for this process.
David.
Angie and Julia, thank you for presenting the plan. And also, I thank Travel Oregon for having a plan and for initiating this process to re-engage and bring the plan current. I was going to ask about Southern Oregon, so thank you for sharing that Bob and his team have a plan, and it's there. And I wanted to ask, such plans are living and ongoing and ever-changing. What is the process for keeping the plan current with an ever-evolving environment that's so dynamic and impactful to our regions, and also working with the regions to keep their plans current moving forward?
So, yeah, I will say the week after we finished training the Travel Oregon team on their crisis plan, I got a call from Julia and Allie that because of the potential government shutdown, Crater Lake was maybe going to be closed during the eclipse. I was like, well, we didn't have that in the plan. So they are constantly being updated and changed. And my goal in working with the teams that we will be training on these plans is they have to meet at minimum yearly and really reviewing the plans, seeing what the potential risks are, making sure everything is updated, making sure the team is updated, the team is trained. And that really, I think, will fall a little bit on the task force to remind people. Like every September, we're all going to sit down as a group and go through our plans. They do tend to sit on shelves and they're never used. And that's great. That is my goal. But they do need to be reviewed by those RDMO leads on the task force to make sure that they're being updated. I mean, there's new crises every day, unfortunately. And so, yeah, that will be something the task force will need to make sure they're managing.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Harish?
No, that's fine. Commissioner Grummel read my mind and asked my question, so thank you.
I actually had the same question. But, the other thing is, on a level 3, for example, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, in a region where there's multiple fires, is it each individual fire that you go through and assess and determine what level? Or if you're do you look in a region and say that with the multiple fires there constitute a level 3? And if that's the case, how do we?
Yeah, it's a great question, Commissioner Pendleton. I think the one thing that has become really clear to me just in this last few months is that we have to think in our lane in terms of communications. And there's a lot of really great agencies on the ground. OEM, Office of Emergency Management, is one of them. They're on the ground tracking those fires and communicating out to their networks as well. But I think it's really smart the way the plan has been structured in terms of what types of media coverage it's garnering, because that's where you have to step in and start to help navigate the narrative that's out there. So I think, just to answer your question around, do you assess each individual fire? I don't know that we're going to be assessing each individual fire. It's the stories that are coming out and what's the public perception of that place, and how do we as Travel Oregon help, inform visitors, residents, and kind of stay in our travel and tourism lane. So I don't know if you would add any more to that.
No, I think that's correct. I think that, what we have as a state agency is the ability to amplify messages through our different channels, and certainly through the welcome centers. And so, although we don't want to amplify every crisis, right? And so that was really the purpose of those kind of individual RDMO plans. The fire, in my mind, the very first meeting, the task force will be talking about wildfire season. And as far as we have come in communicating that and handling that, there's so much more that we can learn. We spent a lot of time talking to the crisis team from Hawaii. I know Allie spent a lot of time talking to folks in California. That's actually how the task force came about. And, we will constantly be learning and figuring out better ways to handle that. But I agree with Julia. It really is more kind of the impact on where visitors will be. Our job is to make sure that visitors, past, present, and future, are well informed and are getting the correct up-to-date information. So we will lean heavily on those other state agencies to kind of identify the risk levels, and then we will help amplify those messages when necessary.
Okay, well, wonderful, because I'm one that value the work that you are doing, and it makes a difference. Several years back, Mr. Eckhart with Travel Oregon and I had a conversation when a fire broke out. I just happened to be out of town, and I'm calling my staff, and we've got 2-3 people calling clients and other tour operators and stuff we work with, both domestic and internationally, just trying to update them that all of Oregon is not burning.
Right.
And somehow we got in a conversation with David, why didn't you just call us?
Yeah.
We could help you.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was right. You know, the resources are there. We just have to stop for a moment and think that how do we access these? And but the work you guys are doing is great. And you know, just to hear you say that the first thing you did was come in and update the plan. The first thing came to my mind is simply a fire extinguisher. You know, in my house. It's like, oh well, it's you know, should have been replaced 2-3 years ago, but I need it now. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Two of my 3 questions were answered, so thank you very much. A third one was the 2 regions that didn't participate with the plan. Did you mirror their plan, or did you guys discuss it? Did they take any feedback with the regions you're working with, or how was that relationship developed?
Do you want me to take that? So the Angie and Allie presented our crisis communications plan March of 2024 at GovCon with all of the PR communications leads from every region, and walked through sort of the importance of us working together. And I think that we can't underline enough the importance of the task force. And so every region had an opportunity to see our plan and how it would function, and the opportunity to raise their hand to mirror ours and create ours. So Travel Portland, Travel Southern Oregon didn't necessarily have to do that because they've got their plans in place. And I don't know if we've consulted their plans directly, but they've raised their hands in terms of wanting to join our task force, recognizing that that's a critical element of us all staying connected, keeping our plans up to date, learning from each other, staying connected and informed. So half answering your question, but yeah, I think just to me it was really important to see early on in my joining Travel Oregon that we had this buy-in from the regions at the very start of they see the value of this and they want to engage, and that's just going to make the task force all the more effective at what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Todd. Julia, Angie, thank you so much for being here today, for the focus that you're bringing to this and the manner in which you're taking time to break it down and share this information with us. And you've mentioned, and I'm grateful that you've mentioned on a couple of occasions, the Department of Emergency Management. And I want to make sure that everyone on the commission, everyone in the room, and everyone watching remotely really has the ability to understand and appreciate. It's the Oregon Department of Human Services within ODHS, the Office of Emergency Management. As you noted, they have just the broadest set of unimaginable responsibilities, and I have had what I will categorize as the blessing to have worked with them very deeply on programming in the past. That's very important, as has past chair Richard Boyles with Merite Hotels. And I guess my objective is to seize this opportunity to elevate, not only for those of us in the lodging industry, but in related industries. It is very important that you are in contact proactively with the Office of Emergency Management on behalf of your business. you have to do the papers. Proactively, you have to register with the Office of Emergency Management, because when the crisis happens, they have lodging needs, they have feeding needs, they have transportation needs, they have all of these services that are critical to our missions. And at times when suddenly all of our customers need to go away because we're in a level 2 or level 3 crises, they're just putting on their boots and rolling up their sleeves and getting to work. And so both for fiscal and contracting reasons, as well as the communicative reasons to be able to act swiftly, I can't encourage you enough. We were just at the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association's annual conference, and they actually exhibit the Department of Emergency Management to make sure that hotels and restaurants understand this need for proactive contracting. And so, again, I want to encourage everybody to flag a note, to do a little research, and please feel free to contact me at syoungblood@cascada.me if I can be helpful in connecting you, because the Oregon Department of Human Services Office of Emergency Management is so critical in times like these. So thank you for invoking their name, for mentioning the work that they do, and just the opportunity that we all have.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. I think it's important for everyone to understand how we can best collaborate with them. And I know that when we talked to them, they were so open and grateful for this collaboration. And what we discovered in these conversations is that they also have regional partners in each of their, I think they break it down by 5 regions, but those RDMO crisis communication teams will be bringing in those partners as well, just to make sure there's a direct line of communication just in how we can best support them.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So Angie, Julia, thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your work and for your presentation. And with that, Chair DeNovo, it's my pleasure to turn the microphone back over to you. And as I do, I just want to personally congratulate both you and Vice Chair Willits for being reelected, and but most importantly, just to thank you. Just a personal note of gratitude for your willingness to continue to serve this commission and to serve this industry in leadership roles like that. So thank you for that. So.
Thank you, Todd. We have reached the end of our agenda today. One housekeeping note. Commissioner Pendleton, you asked a great question about when a commissioner asks a question, how does that information get relayed back to commissioners? So practice is that when a question is asked, staff goes back, gathers the data, and sends it to the individual commissioner. Todd had a great idea. You commissioners ask great questions, and wouldn't it be great if we all knew those answers? So I think going forward, if there is a question, the information will be distributed to all commissioners instead of just the individual commissioner. So Commissioner Pendleton, I feel like you want to say something, so yes?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I do have a comment, but it just relates to other businesses.
Okay.
But yeah, I do have a comment.
Okay.
And just piggyback off of what Todd has just said, and this relates to our strategic plan and DEI, okay? I just attended the Women's in Tourism conference a couple days ago, and I just want to say this. You've done an incredible job as chair, and you know, when I think of the DEI, you're a model for what it really stands for. And that's why this commission re-elected you as chair. And I just want to give you a shout out and say thank you for your efforts. I know it's been hard, but it just shows the value that women brings in this industry. And the more that we work to continue to elevate that, I think is so critical to the future for not just Oregon, but for the U.S. No disrespect, Greg, you've done a great job too, but you know, this is.
I really appreciate
Greg
that.
understands.
I would say that there are other women in this audience who have helped people like me get to this place. You know, I take this work very seriously in making sure that we are focused on DEI initiatives. And I'm just, even though I take it very seriously, it is a core value of Travel Oregon. And so I'm just so impressed with the work we've done. We know that there's definitely work that we need to do. And so I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I just want to say this, I kid with Greg, but I know the work he does as well as the commitment of the rest of this commission. So Greg, please know that.
Don't take offense there.
I know you don't.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Before we end today, yes, I wanted to acknowledge, I was on that walk yesterday with Commissioner Hill, and he mentioned that there are a few new products that they've launched. So I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Hill and wanted to give him an opportunity to speak about some of these new products if he'd like to share with us.
On the spot. Well, most of the products revolve around the IT industry and gaming products. We have a new platform that we just developed, launched. It's a player portal. This we're working with the smaller casinos that can't afford a robust platform, under 1,000 games. We also have a bonusing tracking system that we're going to be launching at G2E with one of our partners here in a few weeks down in Las Vegas. So it's exciting to have that. And so it's one of those sectors that we are always looking at being innovative on and, evolving as this industry does as well. So thank you.
Congratulations. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge Commissioner Grummels and Commissioner Pendleton for saying yes to serving on the nominating committee. As Greg eloquently said earlier, your work on it, your thoroughness, your seeking and engaging with all the commissioners to see if they wanted to step up into a role of leadership was so appreciated. I thought we'd have a 15-minute conversation, and of course it was an hour. It was an engaged conversation and a really candid conversation of what's the work that we've done that we're really proud of, and what work do we want to continue to advance forward. And we couldn't do that work, quite honestly, without the talented staff of the Travel Oregon team, our CEO. And so I just want to say thank you to both of you for leading that. I want to remind everyone that our next meeting is December 3rd and 4th in Mount Hood in the Columbia Gorge region. So more information will be posted on the industry website soon. Thank you, Central Oregon. They put a bag. They passed out bags to us. So, Chris, you want to say something?
I messed up during our presentation. I had it all staged with the team, and then we all got up and left, so apologies on keeping everyone. But we wanted to gift the commission an official Central Destination Management Studio mess kit. Oh. So what you'll find in there are bowls, a fork, and a Hydro Flask wine tumbler that we've been giving attendees to our management studios to promote for less usage of single-use products. They're all Oregon made, and then your bags are a little bit more enhanced with some other local products that we feature that will be in community for these management studios and also made here and grown here. So enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the go back.
Absolutely. And we are excited, commissioners. Remember when we adjourn this meeting, we're going to go to the spot next in Madras. So as a reminder, Matt, what time will we be leaving for that?
We're asked to be there at 12:45.
Okay, it's 12:18. We'll be leaving directly following this meeting. So with that said, again, thank you to the wonderful hospitality we received here in Madras, and this meeting is adjourned. Thanks.